Hey guys, tonight we drift away from our world and sail into another. Picture this. You're gliding silently over dark, endless water, stretched out in a wooden canoe barely wide enough for your knees. Above you, stars scatter like powdered sugar over the velvet sky, constellations unfamiliar but strangely inviting. The air tastes like brine and smoked banana leaves. There's no engine, no rumble, just the quiet slap of oars and the low hum of your thoughts. You have no map, only the stars, the swell of waves, and a feeling in your gut that the island is close enough to smell it. You catch a hint of firewood and fermented fruit riding the breeze. Your fingers brush the water. It's warm and silken, like tea that's been sitting in the sun too long. You don't know it yet, but tonight you'll discover a world where people speak through ink, where skin is paper and pain is part of the poetry. You probably won't survive the full traditional tatau, by the way, not unless your pain tolerance is measured in gods. Just saying. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening from anywhere in the world, let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is over there. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You spot it at last. A dusky blur on the horizon. As your canoe slices closer, shapes emerge, lean coconut palms swaying like they're gossiping, torches flickering along a curved shoreline. You step off onto warm, powdery sand that squeezes gently between your toes. It's late, but the island is alive. Not loudly, no, more like a breath you barely hear, a rhythm pulsing just under the silence. You walk, guided by instinct, toward the dim glow of huts clustered like sleepy eyes. The air smells of seaweed and earth and the faint, sweet burn of candlenut oil. From behind one hut there's a sound, not a drum, not exactly music. Tap, 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 tap. It's the sound of wood on bone. You follow it without thinking, your feet crunching over shells and dried leaves. That tapping grows clearer, slower, deliberate, like someone marking time. The hut looms ahead, low-roofed, open-walled. Inside, 3 people crouch. One sits still as stone, legs folded beneath him. Another leans close, a small wooden mallet in hand. The third watches quietly, holding a polished comb made of bone, its sharp teeth slick with dark ink. The smell here changes. Ash, coconut oil, blood, faint but unmistakable. You don't speak, you just sit nearby, the way a traveler might sit at a stranger's fire, uninvited but tolerated. The man receiving the tattoo doesn't flinch. The tapping continues, methodical, striking the comb into flesh, pushing pigment beneath the skin. Tiny black lines begin to form, shapes that look like waves, hooks, and bird tracks. The ink glistens, even in the dim light. There's no buzzing machine, no sterile tray of modern tools, just bone, soot, and willpower. An older woman nearby notices you and raises a brow. "First time?" she whispers. You nod and she chuckles gently, not unkindly. Everyone stares the first time. She leans closer, the firelight dancing across her face, and that's when you see it. Her neck, her collarbones, her arms, all laced with designs. Some thick and geometric, some like lace spun from the ocean itself. Not one mark is random, every inch means something. She tells you these marks are old, not just years, not even decades, generations. The ones she wears were started when she was a child. Each design added with time, with ritual. You earn them. You don't choose them from a book in a waiting room. And just like that, you begin to realize this isn't decoration. It's history, memory, territory, spirit. She gestures with her chin toward the man being tattooed. His third time, she says. His thighs will be done next. That's the worst part. She grins. Some men cry, some pass out. One pretended a centipede bit him, but no one leaves halfway. You laugh softly, then stop. Because behind the joke is something real, something binding. This isn't a trend, it's a trial, and he's being tested. Outside, the night hums with cicadas and distant surf. Inside, the hut pulses with the steady cadence of creation. Tap, 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 tap. The woman tells you that the designs differ from island to island. In Samoa, it's called tatau. In Tonga, tatatau. In Tahiti, tatau again. The names vary, the symbols shift, but the purpose remains: a rite, a record, a badge of both belonging and becoming. You ask how old the practice is. She shrugs. Older than the stories, she says, and she's not wrong. The oldest tattooed human ever found, Otzi the Iceman, is over 5,000 years old. But Polynesian tattooing, that's different. It's not just ancient, it's living. Archaeologists still argue whether tattooing spread westward from Asia or developed independently in different island cultures. Some believe it began as a form of healing. Others think it started with rites of passage. Still others suggest it was always about status and visibility. Who you are, where you come from, what you carry. The woman smirks. Historians argue a lot, she says, but we know what our tattoos mean. You stay there for a while, knees hugged to your chest, letting the tapping wash over you like rain. There's no hurry, no urgency. The world has slowed down to the tempo of bone-meeting skin. Behind you, someone snores softly. A child's laugh drifts on the wind. The smell of grilled breadfruit lingers in the air, faint and warm. The night is full, but not heavy, and you feel a little different now, like you've stepped into something older than names, more patient than time. Just wait. This is only your first night here. The next morning arrives, not with an alarm or a chirping phone, but with soft wind and the scratchy hush of palm leaves scraping the roof of your hut. Your back aches slightly from sleeping on woven mats, but it's the kind of ache that reminds you you're alive, human, mortal, very much here. You step outside, blinking into golden dawn. A rooster calls from somewhere you can't see. Children dart between trees, laughing in bursts. One of them has a fresh tattoo on his ankle, still raw, still wrapped in softened bark. He limps a little, but you can tell by his proud grin. It was worth it. Down by the beach, the tide has left tangled seaweed and bits of coral, like the ocean's version of dirty laundry. You walk slowly, letting the cool waves tug at your ankles. The sand clings to your skin like a second layer. And then you see them. 3 elders are sitting in the shade of a breadfruit tree, all of them tattooed from chin to toe. The ink is black, faded in some places, bold in others. Their bodies look like ancient scrolls, if scrolls could cross their arms, chew sugarcane, and raise their eyebrows in judgment. You inch closer, and one of them waves you over. His voice is creaky as driftwood. You came in the night, he says. We saw your boat, or dreamt it. It's unclear whether he's joking. You decide to play along. They offer you roasted taro and something sweet made from mashed bananas and coconut cream. As you eat, your eyes keep returning to their tattoos. You can't help it. Their bodies are maps with no legend, no key. Noticing your gaze, one elder grins and taps his shoulder. This one, he says, pointing to a jagged swirl, means I survived a shark attack. Barely. The shark looked worse than I did, though. You're 40% sure he's lying, but the scar beneath the ink lends just enough credibility to make you hesitate. Another elder leans in and shows you a spiral tattoo coiling around his elbow. This, he says, is my mother's chant, the words woven into symbols. Every time I bend my arm, she speaks again. The third, quieter one, simply lifts his leg. From ankle to knee. Designs of flying birds, ocean waves, and a face with empty eyes. He doesn't explain. And you don't ask. It feels like standing next to a cathedral, beautiful, sacred, and none of your business unless invited. Their skin holds decades, losses, triumphs. Maybe a few drunken mistakes too, because, hey, everyone's human. But there's an aura to it, a weight that you, with your plain, unmarked arms, feel acutely. One of the elders gestures to a hut, tucked farther inland. "You want to understand?" he says. "Go there, listen, watch, but don't ask for a tattoo yet. The ink decides when it wants you." You nod, though you're not sure what that means. Tattoos with opinions? Sure, why not? This island feels like it's held together by bone, ink, and ancient side eyes. You follow the elder's direction and make your way toward the new hut. It's built sturdier than the others, and something about it hums, like the wood itself is alive. As you step inside, your eyes adjust to the gloom. The air is thick with smoke and stories. Along one wall, hanging neatly, is a display of tools. Tattoo combs, all they're called here. Made from turtle shell, bird bone, and boar tusk, each one is shaped with obsessive care. Some are wide for shading, others are thin for lines as fine as a whisper. You pick one up carefully. It feels heavier than it should. Not physically, spiritually, like every mark it ever made is still clinging to it. You half expect it to vibrate in your hand, maybe whisper a story or two. The ink, you discover, is made from the soot of burnt candle nuts, black as midnight, mixed with water and coconut oil, and sometimes a dash of saliva. Yes, saliva. Personal touch, right? You try not to look horrified. One bowl still holds a smear of ink from last night's session. You stare into it and imagine it sinking into your skin. Permanent, irreversible, deeply personal. Kind of like adopting a tattooed puppy that never stops judging your life choices. Almo why, a young apprentice walks in, bare-chested, his arms already bearing his first few designs. He sees you, nods respectfully, then begins the daily ritual of cleaning the tools. Not with bleach or gloves, but with ocean water, leaves and songs. He hums as he works, a low melody, rhythmic. You recognize the beat, it mirrors the tattooing stroke, tap, tap, tap. Even his cleaning is ceremonial. Nothing here is rushed. Everything breathes. You sit in the corner and watch him for what feels like hours. The way he handles the tools, gentle, reverent, like they're bones of a god. At one point he glances at you and smiles. "The tools remember," he says, simply, then returns to his work. You wonder what your skin would say if you let it. What truths it would confess. Would your memories look like crooked waves? Would your regrets appear as broken lines? Would joy swirl like bird wings around your wrists? Outside, the sound of children playing mixes with the ocean's slow exhale. You lean back against the wooden post and feel yourself drift, just a little. The kind of sleepy, sun-warmed drift that makes you forget the time, the year, your worries. But before your eyes close completely, you hear a story, a whispered one, shared between two elders walking past the hut. One of them says the old tools were once believed to hold spirits, that each owl had its own voice, that if a tattoo was done improperly, the spirit inside the tool could curse you. Historians still argue whether that belief was symbolic or literal. The elder chuckles. But I've seen a bad tattoo ruin a man's soul. That wakes you up. You think of all the quick, careless tattoos you've seen in back alley shops. Barbed wire, tramp stamps, misspelled mantras. No spirits in those, just regret and a coupon. But here, the act is sacred. The tattooer is priest, surgeon and poet. The tools are relics, the ink is language, and the skin is story. You don't say anything, you just sit and listen and try to memorize the rhythm of this place because you're starting to understand. And the ink may be starting to notice you. You wake to drumming, not the loud kind that rattles your teeth, but a soft, woody thud that seems to echo from inside your own chest. It's sunrise again, and the world feels dipped in gold. The trees sway slowly, like they're dancing with their eyes closed. Everything is quiet, except for that drum. As you walk back toward the tattoo hut, you realize it's not a drum at all. It's the tufuga, the master tattooist, already at work. Tap, tap, tap. The sound threads through the morning mist like a needle through cloth. You duck into the hut, and there he is, cross-legged, calm, ancient without looking old. His body is a tapestry of ink, shoulders shaded in spirals, chest carved with triangular mountains, a band around his head like a crown of dark feathers. He doesn't look at you right away. He's too focused on the canvas in front of him, a teenage boy, his face tense but proud, bracing as the tapping tool bites into his back. The boy's family sits nearby, not stoic, supportive. A mother hums under her breath. A younger sibling offers water. No one talks over the tapping. The rhythm is sacred. You take a seat in the back corner on a mat that still smells of coconut oil and sea water. The tufuga finally glances up at you. No smile, no scowl. Just a nod that says, "You're still here." You watch, mesmerized. His hands move with impossible precision. He taps the small mallet carved from ironwood against the back of the the bone comb. With every strike, ink is pushed into the skin. Not scratched, not drawn, implanted, permanent. The pattern is forming slowly, a curved line with sharp corners, a series of triangles cascading like shark teeth down the boy's spine. It doesn't look like much at first, but then it grows, it connects, it becomes. The tufuga dips the comb into ink with a flick of his wrist. Never too much, never too little. It's like watching someone write poetry in Morse code, one dot and dash at a time. You lean in slightly and whisper to the woman beside you. How long does it take? She smiles without looking at you. Depends. Some take weeks, a full body. Years. You try to picture that. Years of pain, ceremony, waiting. Most people can't even commit to a gym membership for more than a month. Another tap, another line. The boy winces but doesn't flinch. Sweat beads on his neck. His eyes focus on a single point in the rafters, like he's trying to astral project his way out of his body. The tufuga pauses only to whisper something in the boy's ear. It's not soothing, it's serious. The boy nods once, then closes his eyes and breathes deeply. The woman next to you leans in again. He said, "Don't forget who you are. Every mark is a mirror." You swallow. It's a lot. And yet there's something hypnotic about the whole thing. The tapping slows your heartbeat. The scent of the ink, the fire, the oiled skin, it wraps around your thoughts like a weighted blanket. Here's the thing no one tells you. This isn't about endurance, it's about surrender. You don't tough it out, you give in, you allow, you trust the pain to turn into meaning. The tufuga's apprentice brings over a small bundle, clean palm leaves, bark cloth, more ink. He kneels respectfully before the master and whispers a question you don't catch. The tufuga responds without speaking, just a gesture. The apprentice nods, bows his head, and turns to you. Oh no, he's coming your way. He offers a smile, half mischief, half reverence, and beckons you to follow. You do, legs a bit wobbly. He leads you to the rear of the hut, where light filters through slits in the walls, striping the floor with golden bands. He pulls out a rolled mat, unrolls it slowly. In the center, tools, fresh, polished, whispering. "Sit," he says, just to feel it. You do, trying not to look like someone who might immediately run screaming. He hands you an the comb. It's cool to the touch. Bone teeth, sharp as thorns. Each one is different, he says. This one is used for first marks, only small lines. It's not for pain, just memory. He doesn't press you, doesn't tap you, just lets you hold it. The thing feels alive in your hand. Before you are tattooed, he says softly, you must watch many times, you must listen, you must dream the pattern. If you don't see it in your mind, it's not ready to live in your skin. You nod slowly. That actually makes sense. Oddly more sense than most modern things like taxes or dating apps. He returns the tool to its bundle and bows his head. When you are ready, it will call you. You don't choose it. That night, you lie in your hut, unable to sleep. Your skin tingles, but not from the sun. Your fingers twitch like they're tracing invisible lines. You dream of ink, but not pictures, sounds, That rhythm, tap, 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 it echoes through your spine. And in that dream, your body begins to speak. You wake with the dawn, a strange certainty in your chest. You walk to the beach to clear your head, and there, kneeling in the surf, is the boy from yesterday. His tattoo is finished. The pattern glows against his back like armor. He catches your eye and smiles, teeth white against sun-darkened skin. Hurts less than heartbreak, he says. You laugh, because of course it does. And then he adds, but it stays longer. You don't respond, you just look at the ink. And silently in your bones, something answers, yes. I'm ready to remember. You rise with purpose. No one says anything as you leave your hut. There's no announcement, no fanfare, but somehow the people you pass seem to know. They nod, they smile. One elderly woman even offers you a warm piece of roasted breadfruit wrapped in banana leaf. For strength, she says, as though what you're about to do is climbing a mountain or jumping off one. The air smells different this morning, earthier. Like rain might come later, though the sky is still a flawless pale blue. You head inland, feet pressing into the soft mulch of forest paths, past tangled vines and sun-dappled undergrowth, until you reach the clearing. The tufuga is already there, waiting. As if he dreamt you'd arrive today. He's not alone. His apprentice is laying out the tools on fresh mats, bowls of ink, bundles of leaves, coconut husks for wiping blood. And there, gleaming faintly in the morning light, is the bone comb you held the day before. You sit without speaking. You don't ask what the design will be. That's not how it works. The ink knows, the tool knows, the tufuga knows. He kneels in front of you, gently takes your wrist, turns your arm over and examines your skin as though reading a scroll. Then a nod. Slow. Certain. He dips the comb into the ink, raises the mallet, and taps. It's sharper than you expected. Not unbearable, just intimate, like a thorn that loves you too much to leave you alone. You clench your jaw on instinct. Your other hand curls into the mat. But then something strange happens. You start to relax. The tapping becomes rhythmic, predictable. Each strike sends a pulse down your spine. You begin to breathe with it. Inhale, tap, exhale, tap, tap. You realize you've surrendered to it. And it's not pain anymore, it's presence. The apprentice begins to hum, a deep, low melody that seems to thrum through the floor. You recognize it. It's the same hum from the day he cleaned the tools. A song without words, a lullaby for the skin. The tufuga works methodically, the pattern forming line by line. You can't see it yet, but you feel it. Not just on the surface. Inside. He pauses only once, places a hand over the design, closes his eyes. You do the same. The forest leans in, even the birds seem to hush. Then he continues. At some point, time slips away. You're not sure if it's been 20 minutes or 2 hours. The sun has shifted, your legs have gone numb. Your mind, however, is clear. Clearer than it's been in years. You think about things you forgot you remembered. Childhood smells, forgotten songs, faces you haven't seen in a decade. It's like your skin is opening old boxes and letting the contents drift up. And then he stops. No announcement, no flourish. Just a tap of the comb against the edge of the bowl and a nod. The apprentice wipes away the excess ink with soft cloth soaked in cooled coconut milk. You finally look down. The tattoo is simple, a curved line wrapping the inside of your forearm, tapering into 2 points like the tail of a bird or the start of a wave. Inside the curve, smaller lines crisscrossed like woven mat fibers. One dot in the center. It doesn't scream. It whispers. You love it instantly. The tufuga touches the tattoo one last time. Memory, he says. You carry them now. You don't ask who he means. You already know. The days that follow unfold like lazy waves. You walk slower. You listen more. You begin to notice that nearly everyone here bears ink. Some on fingers, barely visible. Others with sprawling patterns across their chest or back. Some you didn't notice before because they weren't flaunted, because here tattoos don't shout, They speak when spoken to. A young woman sits with you one afternoon and shows the markings on her knees. "These are for my grandmother," she says. "She never had time to get hers. I wear them for her." Later that night, an older man lifts his shirt to reveal a faded tattoo across his ribs. It looks like the horizon line, with tiny triangles above and below. "It's a map," he says, "a real one, of the stars we follow when we sail." "Does it work?" you ask, half joking. He shrugs. "I've never been lost." You start to understand. Polynesian tattoos aren't about fashion. They're about location. Not just where you are, but who you are, when you arrived, what you've survived. And then, one afternoon, you notice something curious. Your own tattoo has darkened slightly. It catches the light differently. The lines seem deeper, more sure of themselves. You ask the apprentice about it. He smiles. "Sometimes," he says, "the skin absorbs the story more slowly. You'll keep learning it for years." There's a phrase the elders use here. They say, "The skin must remember what the mouth cannot say." You think about that often, especially when the tufuga tells you about the lost designs, the ones that disappeared when entire families were wiped out by sickness, storms, or colonizers. Some tattoos were never passed down. The stories went silent. Historians still argue whether those symbols can ever be reconstructed. Some believe oral memory is enough. Others insist those designs are gone forever, swept away like sand drawings after the tide. But the tufuga shrugs when asked. "Even if they're gone," he says, "the gaps still speak. The silence is part of the pattern." You're not sure what that means, but somehow you feel it's true. One night, as you sit on the beach under the full moon, you notice the same young boy who was tattooed when you arrived. He sits beside you without speaking for a long time. Then he says, "I used to be afraid of the pain." "Were you?" you ask. "You didn't look it." He laughs. "That's because I was too proud to cry." You both stare at the waves for a while. Then he adds, "Now I know it's not the pain that stays. It's the meaning." You touch your arm. The ink feels warm beneath your skin. It's part of you now. And somehow, it always was. You wake before sunrise, stirred not by sound, but by a subtle pull, like the island itself has whispered, "Come with me." You step outside into the grey-blue quiet of pre-dawn. The air is thick with promise, and the smell of damp leaves rises from the ground like a soft exhale. A faint trail leads from your hut inland. You haven't noticed it before, maybe because it wasn't meant to be seen until now. It snakes through the trees just wide enough for one set of footsteps. Yours. You follow. As you walk, you pass tree trunks carved with marks, not painted, not etched with tools, but scorched into the bark. Symbols you recognize from tattoos, waves, hooks, eyes. One even matches the pattern on your own arm. You run your fingers across it, and the texture is rough, ancient, alive. Eventually, the trail opens into a small clearing, a circle of stone seats worn smooth by time and storytelling. At the center sits a single figure, the tufuga. He's tracing lines in the dirt with a stick, quiet and focused, as though he's mapping dreams. He looks up when you arrive. "Sit," he says, not unkindly. You do. The stone is cool against your legs. Without preamble, he begins to draw in the dirt. "Before the ink," he says, "before tools, before even fire, there were stories." He sketches a long curve, a canoe. He adds triangles, waves, dots, stars, and finally, a small spiral at the center. "This," he says, tapping the spiral, "is you, your body, your line." You blink. "My line?" He nods. "Your mana, your energy, your spirit. Everyone carries it. When we tattoo, we mark that line. We make the invisible visible." He wipes the drawing with his hand. Starts again. This time, a different shape. Not a canoe, but a person. Arms raised, chest out. "This is your ancestor," he says. "Maybe 10 generations back, maybe more. You don't remember them, but your skin does. You shiver, not from cold, from recognition. Every tattoo you wear is a thread, he continues, a line connecting you backward and forward. Even if your children never meet you, your marks will tell them where they come from. It's oddly comforting, like finding out your skin is writing letters to people you'll never meet. He pauses and looks at you, really looks. But not all ink is worn for the past. Some is for what's coming. He stands and gestures toward the rising sun. Come. You walk together in silence until you reach a high ledge that overlooks the sea. Below, the village still sleeps, wrapped in shadows and soft bird calls. The ocean glows with first light, a silver sheet stirred by breath. The tufuga points to the horizon. The sea doesn't forget where you came from, but it doesn't care either. You must carry your own memory, your own truth. Tattoo is how we hold the sea inside us. It sounds poetic, until you realize it's also completely practical. These designs weren't just spiritual, they were functional, literal. Sailors tattooed wave patterns to guide navigation. They marked stars, trade winds, even shark warnings. Your forearm, that could be your compass, your thigh. A tide chart, you think of GPS now, and suddenly it feels embarrassingly needy. He chuckles at your face. The old ones didn't need satellites, he says. They had skin. You laugh too, a soft snort that echoes off the rocks. So I guess I'm part map now. He nods. Exactly. And just like that, another truth settles into your bones. Later that day, back in the village, you're invited to a storytelling gathering, not one of those performative cultural center shows. No, this is a circle of aunties, uncles, and wriggly kids sitting around a smoky fire, passing fruit, slapping mosquitoes, and finishing each other's stories mid-sentence. An elder stands and lifts his shirt to reveal his chest. The tattoo is massive, a full pair stretching from mid-torso down to his knees. A true warrior's tattoo, and he earned every inch. He tells of the day he received it, how the pain made him weep, not from hurt, but from the memory it pulled out of him. A lost brother, a forgotten promise, how the ink didn't just mark him, it freed him. Another woman tells of a pattern she wears around her calves, symbols for each of her children, even the ones who didn't survive. They still walk with me, she says, so I wear their footprints. And then, your turn. They don't ask, but everyone looks at you. Not demanding, just curious. So you pull back your sleeve, reveal the design, the curve, the fibers, the dot. The room leans in. You explain it quietly, unsure. Memory, you say. He said I carry them now. An auntie nods solemnly. You do, and they're listening. Someone claps, and the moment passes, replaced by laughter, food, a child dancing with a mango pit stuck in his mouth. But something lingers. That night, as you lie in your hut, the stars outside the window look different. Not random, not scattered, placed, and you remember something the tufuga said that morning. Tattoos are the punctuation at the end of memory. They say, this mattered, this happened, this is still here. You touch your arm once more, the ink cool against your skin. This is still here, and so are you. By now the sound of tapping is stitched into your days. It follows you like a heartbeat, a gentle, rhythmic presence that fills the spaces between meals, between thoughts, between breaths. Tap, 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 tap. The village feels smaller, more familiar. You start to recognize who lives where, who sings in the mornings, who snores during naps. The smell of grilled fish makes you smile instead of wrinkle your nose. You even find yourself craving fermented breadfruit, though let's be honest, it still tastes a bit like what old shoes might taste like if left in a sauna. One morning, you follow the winding path along the edge of the jungle until it spills into a low valley dotted with black volcanic stones. In the middle of this field stands a thatched structure, simpler than the tattoo hut, but no less important. A few women sit cross-legged inside, threading thin ropes through their fingers. Their laughter floats on the wind like birdsong. One of them spots you. "Come," she says, patting the mat beside her. "Today you learn how women carry ink." You sit, and everything shifts. You've seen the men, broad-shouldered, thighs inked like armor, jaws lined with symbols of ferocity and land. But the women, their tattoos tell different stories. Softer, yes, but no less powerful. One woman rolls up her sleeve. Along her forearm, a series of dots and lines weave into a graceful spiral. "This is the path to motherhood," she says. "Each dot is a child I brought into the world, or lost." She says it without flinching. Another lifts her skirt slightly to show the back of her calf, woven diamond shapes that mimic the pattern of pandanus mats. "I am a weaver," she says, "so I wear my work." They show you tiny symbols etched behind ears, beneath chins, across collarbones. Nothing loud, nothing obvious, but each one deeply personal. The tattoos women receive here aren't always grand. Sometimes they're barely visible, but they are constant. They are declarations of love, of role, of strength. You learn that in many Polynesian societies, women were the first to be tattooed. Before warriors, before chiefs, the practice marked puberty, readiness for marriage, spiritual connection. One of the older women chuckles. Now the men think they invented it, and the others erupt in laughter. You ask about the pain. One of them shrugs. "Childbirth hurts more." Another says, "It's not pain, it's remembering." You begin to notice something else. Where the men's tattoos seem to shout, "I am here," the women's seem to whisper, "I have always been." The difference is subtle, but you feel it. That afternoon, you help prepare for a celebration. No one tells you what it's for, just that it's happening. That's how it is here. Ceremony flows naturally like rain. It doesn't need an occasion. It is the occasion. Everyone gathers near the shore, where garlands of flowers hang from poles and torches begin to flicker in the breeze. Food is piled onto banana leaves, taro, coconut cream, roasted fish, and something that smells suspiciously like barbecue but tastes nothing like it. Then, as twilight settles, the music begins, not with instruments but with voices. Harmonies rise like tides, low and powerful. And then the dancers step forward, and that's when you see them. Tattooed women, shoulders bare, skin gleaming, marks catching firelight with every sway. Their movements are slow, deliberate, hypnotic. Each twist of the hip, each roll of the hand, reveals another part of the story. You realize the dance isn't choreographed, it's remembered. Their tattoos shift and stretch with them, becoming part of the narrative. A line across the thigh turns into a wave as she steps. A symbol at the navel becomes a rising sun with each arch of her back. It's not performance, it's translation, the body speaking in ink. You feel yourself exhale slowly, not even realizing you were holding your breath. A young dancer meets your eye and smiles, just briefly. Her lower arms are ringed with elegant hooks, each one echoing the curve of her earrings. She spins, and for a second, her tattoos ripple like fish through water. Later, as the fire burns low and laughter gives way to humming, you sit beside her. She offers you roasted taro. You take it. It tastes better now. Or maybe you've changed. You ask her what her tattoos mean. She touches one near her shoulder. "This is for my grandmother," she says. "She had the same. When I dance, I carry her." She touches another on her belly. "This is a song I learned as a girl. It reminds me to breathe before I speak." You point to a tiny mark on her ankle, barely there. "And that?" She grins. "That's just because I thought it was cute." You both laugh, because even in a world of sacred symbols and ancestral pride, sometimes a girl just wants a cute ankle tattoo. "Do you think I'll ever understand it all?" you ask quietly. She leans back, looks at the stars and replies, "You don't need to understand, you just need to feel." You sit together in silence, and you do. You feel it in your bones, your breath, your pulse. Ink isn't just worn here, it moves, it dances, it sings, it endures. The next morning is different. You wake up with salt on your skin and ash in your hair, and it's not from a dream. The scent of burnt wood lingers in the air, rich, smoky, strangely sweet. Somewhere nearby, a fire has been kept going all night. You follow your nose, which by now has become oddly skilled at tracking spiritual energy through the medium of breakfast smells. The source? A low, open-sided hut you haven't noticed before. There's no laughter here, just a quiet, focused hum of activity. 3 elders sit around a pit fire, slowly feeding in small sticks of pua wood. The smoke spirals upward in a perfect column, grey-blue against the brightening sky. One of them beckons you without looking up. "Come," he says, "you've met the ink. Now meet its blood." You sit cross-legged on the woven mat. The floor is gritty with charcoal dust. In front of you, several small bowls are laid out in a half-circle. One holds ash. Another, thick oil. A third, black powder like finely ground stone. But the largest bowl, that's the one that catches your eye. It holds the sacred ink. It gleams, not like wet paint, not like factory dye. This is something else, this is alive. The elder dips his finger into the bowl and spreads a small streak across a flat shell. "Candle nut," he says. "Burnt, slowly, ground, mixed with oil, sometimes water from a sacred spring, sometimes coconut milk." He holds it to the light. "This is what enters your body. This is what stays after everything else is gone." He's not being poetic. He's being literal. The ink, soot, oil, spirit was always more than just pigment. In Polynesian tradition, it was a channel, a carrier, a whisper from the past. You watch as he prepares a fresh batch. The candle nuts, still encased in hard shells, are roasted over the open fire until they pop. The smoke curls into your nostrils. It smells faintly like roasted coffee, with maybe a side of divine responsibility. Once cool, the nuts are crushed on a stone slab using another stone shaped like a teardrop. The resulting paste is black as volcanic glass and somehow smells wise. The elder mixes it with coconut oil from a shell bowl, stirring slowly, like he's coaxing an ancient memory into waking. "This must be stirred by hand," he says. "The skin knows the difference." He adds just a touch of saliva from his own mouth. You try not to flinch. He notices. "It's how we make it personal. Our body in the ink, our breath in the skin." And that's when it hits you. You've spent all this time thinking of tattoos as something that happens to you, but here, there's something you join. You don't receive a tattoo, you participate in it. Even the ink has a piece of someone in it. You ask what happens if the ink runs out. The elder looks at you amused. The ink never runs out, but people forget how to make it. He shows you a faded mark on his thigh. This one was made with ink from the last fire my grandmother lit before she died. We saved the soot from that fire, mixed it, used it to mark everyone in the family. You ask if there's still any left. He shakes his head. "No, but the fire is still here." He taps his heart, then his skin. It just burns differently now. Historians still argue whether the use of personal materials in ink, saliva, ashes of loved ones, even hair, was symbolic or magical. Some dismiss it as superstition, others say it was simply another form of ancestral continuity. But when you look at the bowl of ink again, you don't see pigment. You see legacy, you see someone's breath, someone's fire. You see something that never really dries. The elder hands you a tiny shell filled with freshly made ink. "Take it," he says, "for your story, for later." You tuck it carefully into your satchel. It feels warm. That night, after another round of moonlit dancing and roasted root vegetables, you walk down to the shore, alone. The moon is fat and low, casting silver across the water like spilled ink. You sit in the sand and dip your finger into the shell of ink, just once. Then, slowly, you draw a single line on your ankle. It doesn't sting, it doesn't last, but it means something. You fall asleep under the stars that night, no roof, no mat, just sky and salt and that smear of black across your skin. In the distance, you hear the tapping start again. Someone else is being marked. Someone else is becoming part of the story. You smile because now you know the ink is always burning somewhere. Morning comes slow, the kind of slow that only islands understand, when the sun takes its sweet time warming the sand and the world stretches itself awake without apology. You sit by the shore again, your feet buried ankle-deep in cool sand, that shell of ink resting nearby like a secret. The smear on your ankle is mostly gone now, faded to a faint grey ghost. But the feeling is louder than ever. A boy sits down next to you. Not the same one from before. This one is smaller, maybe 10 or 11. He doesn't say hello, just plucks a dry reed from the sand and begins drawing in the wet shoreline. You watch his fingers move, circles, triangles, long lines that bend like fish hooks. You're drawing tattoo designs, you say. He shrugs. I see them in my dreams. You glance at his arms, smooth, bare. Not a single mark yet. They'll come, he says, as if reading your thoughts. When I'm ready. Then he adds, my grandfather says you have to earn them, that your skin has to ask for it. You nod. You've heard that before, but this time it hits differently, like the words have fermented just long enough inside you to carry a kick. He tosses the reed and grins. I think mine are going to be big, you smile. They will be. He runs off, leaving his sand drawings to fade with the tide, just like everything else, ephemeral until someone decides to make it permanent. You walk back toward the village, and for the first time, you don't feel like a guest. You don't feel like a tourist, or an observer, or even a curious outsider with a respectable pair of sandals. You feel like someone returning. You pass an old man sitting cross-legged outside his hut, his legs covered in tattoos shaped like fish bones and palm fronds. He holds up a hand as you pass. I remember when I got this one, he says, pointing to a thick band across his thigh. 3 days of tapping, nearly fainted on the second, nearly wept on the third. You pause, interested. What was it for? He scratches his chin. I had to apologize to a woman I wronged. She made me get it, said I needed to carry the shame for at least 1 moon cycle. You raise an eyebrow. She was right, he adds. And then he laughs so hard, he coughs. Polynesian tattooing, you're beginning to realize, isn't just about celebration or ritual. It's about reckoning, about facing something, loss, grief, love, guilt, and choosing not to bury it, but to wear it. You think about all the things you've buried, quiet regrets, names you no longer say out loud, dreams you folded into the back pocket of adulthood and forgot to unfold. Maybe tattoos are a way to make peace with them, not by forgetting, but by carrying them visibly, a contract between the past and the present. You wander through the village and find yourself standing in front of the tattoo hut again. The door is open, as it always is. The tufuga is there, hunched over his tools, cleaning them with leaves dipped in ash water. The apprentice sits nearby, humming that familiar low song. Neither looks surprised to see you. You've come to watch, the tufuga says, without glancing up. You nod. Yes. He gestures for you to sit. Today's canvas is an older woman. Her hair is streaked with grey, but her posture is straight as a spear. She lies calmly on the mat as the tapping begins, her calf being marked with a chain of diamond shapes. Why now? You ask quietly. The apprentice answers. Her husband died last month. This is for his memory. You fall silent. The tapping continues. The pattern forms slowly, each diamond like a heartbeat, a breath, a whisper. The woman doesn't flinch. She stares at the ceiling, eyes wide open. You ask if the design has a name. It's called Teaho Manatua, the tufuga replies. The thread of remembering. You repeat it softly. Teaho Manatua. He looks at you then. Some threads are cut, others we choose to carry. Later, when the session ends, the woman sits up. Her leg is trembling slightly, but her face is calm. She thanks the tufuga, thanks the tools, thanks the fire that burns quietly in the back corner of the hut. Then she turns to you. "You have a thread too," she says. You swallow. "I think I'm still figuring out what it connects." She places a hand on your shoulder. Her fingers are dry, calloused and ink-stained. "It will tell you," she says. You spend the rest of the afternoon with the apprentice, learning how to carve a practice-iu, a bone comb. It's not glamorous. It takes hours just to shape the points evenly. Your hands cramp. You drop it twice. At one point, you consider accidentally snapping it in half just to get out of sanding the tips again. But the apprentice smiles and keeps humming. "No shortcuts," he says. The tools remember. He teaches you how to bind the comb to a handle using thin fibers soaked in oil. How to balance the weight so each tap lands evenly. How to test it on bark cloth before ever touching skin. It's not about art, he says. It's about intention. That night, you lay the finished iu beside your sleeping mat. You stare at it for a long time. It doesn't look like much, but it holds potential, a future mark, future memory. You wonder what your skin will one day need to say. Sleep doesn't come easily tonight. You lie on your back, staring at the woven ceiling of the hut, the sound of ocean breath just beyond your feet. The mat beneath you feels different somehow, firmer, less forgiving. The ink shell still rests on a small cloth nearby, glowing faintly in the dark like it remembers something you've forgotten. You think of the old woman's tattoo, Te Aho Manatua, the thread of remembering. You think about how calmly she bore the tapping, how gently she stood afterward, how her grief walked beside her without weighing her down. Outside, the wind picks up, palm fronds rustle like restless whispers, and then footsteps, soft, barefoot, approaching. The Tafuga's voice cuts through the dark. "Come," he says, as if you've already agreed. You don't question it. You just go. He leads you along a narrow path illuminated only by moonlight. The shadows stretch and sway like dancers. You follow in silence until you arrive at a wide circular clearing you've never seen before. At its center, a raised stone platform. Around it, rows of carved wooden figures, some tall and menacing, others small and worn by time. The Tufuga gestures for you to sit on the platform. "What is this place?" you whisper. "A memory garden," he says, "where we carve what we can't ink." You look closer. The wooden figures are covered in tiny carvings, symbols, lines, spirals. Some resemble the tattoos you've seen. Others are completely new. He picks one up and hands it to you. It's barely longer than your palm. On one side, a swirling pattern that looks like two waves meeting. On the other, a shape like a bird in mid-flight. "This one," he says, "belongs to a boy who died before he could receive his tattoos. His mother carved this for him so he wouldn't be forgotten." You hold the figure carefully. It's light, but it feels heavier than stone. "Tattoos aren't always on skin," he continues. "Sometimes they're on wood, sometimes in song, sometimes in story." He walks to another figure, this one nearly as tall as he is. He taps a line of small circles down its back. "This," he says, "tells the journey of a woman who traveled across 6 islands to find her sister. It took her 20 years. When they finally found each other, they didn't speak. They just touched tattoos. You ask if she's still alive. He smiles faintly. Her story is. You wander the garden slowly, fingertips trailing across the wood. Each piece hums with something unspeakable. You wonder how many are for the unmarked, the forgotten, the ones who left before their story could be inked. And then it hits you. This place is not just a collection of objects. It's a skinless body, a body made of echoes. You sit on the stone platform again. The Tufuga takes a seat beside you, cross-legged like always. He hands you a piece of wood and a small blade. "You want to know your design?" he asks. You nod. "Then start carving." You blink. I don't know what to make. He shrugs. Doesn't matter. Your hands know, just don't stop. So you carve, badly at first. The blade slips, the wood splinters. You nearly jab your thumb more than once, but something keeps you going. A rhythm, not unlike the tattooing tap. Scrape, press, pull, scrape. Shapes emerge. At first, nonsense. Then, something else. A circle, a jagged line, a pair of opposing curves, a dot. Your body doesn't know what it's doing, but your heart recognizes it. Each motion becomes more certain. You stop thinking. You just let it happen. By the time the sun peeks over the trees, the carving is done. You look down. It's not perfect, but it's yours. The tufuga takes it gently from your hands, turns it over, nods once. This, he says, is your story's outline. You feel your throat tighten. Then he adds, now the ink will know where to land. You walk back to the village under pale morning light. Birds are starting to sing. The world smells like dew and charcoal. As you pass the sleeping hut, something strange happens. You begin to see people differently. That man with the back tattoo of spears. You notice the smaller, barely visible lines hidden inside the larger ones. Birds, maybe. A nod to freedom. The girl with rings around her wrists. You see how they match her mother's generational cuffs. Even the tufuga's own tattoos shift in your mind. What once looked like chaotic geometry now speaks in sentences. Tattoos, you realize, aren't just markings. They're layers, messages encoded in skin, designed to be seen only when someone is finally quiet enough to understand. That evening, the apprentice pulls you aside. The tufuga says you can begin your second tattoo tomorrow, he says. You blink. So soon? He grins. Time is strange here. The skin knows what it's ready for. Yours is asking. You nod slowly. That night, before sleep, you unwrap the carved figure you made. It's small, rough, but it hums in your hand. You place it beside your mat near the shell of ink. 2 pieces of a puzzle, your voice beginning to take shape. The next day begins not with ceremony, but with silence. No humming from the apprentice, no clanging of coconut shells, no chorus of kids yelling about who stole whose mango. Just a hush, as if the island knows that what's coming deserves stillness. You find yourself back in the tattoo hut, seated on the mat like before. Only this time, your nerves are less jittery. Your breath is steadier. Your skin, weirdly, feels eager, like it's leaning forward, waiting to be rewritten. The tufuga enters, his movements slow and deliberate. He carries the same tools, the same ink bowl, but something is different. His shirt is removed now, revealing a full chest piece that wasn't visible before. The design flows like a current across his ribs, complex and alive. You can't look away. This one, he says, catching your gaze, it is the tide tupu, the growing tide. I received it the day my teacher died. He kneels beside you, gently touches your wrist. His thumb traces the faint line of your first tattoo, then slides higher, toward the inside of your upper arm. He nods. Here. You say nothing. You don't need to. You just breathe. The tapping begins. The pain is sharper this time, more intimate. It goes deeper, not just into the skin, but into the muscle beneath, into the memory. Memory you didn't know you'd stored there. You try to distract yourself, counting beats, watching the flicker of the oil lamp. But soon, even distraction fades, and all that's left is sensation. Tap, 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 tap. Time becomes syrupy. Each tap feels like a question. Are you ready to carry this? Do you know what it means to be remembered? Can you bear the weight of becoming visible? And to each one, your body whispers back, yes. As the pattern grows, the tufuga pauses to reapply ink. He hums softly now, not a melody, but a tone. A sound that feels older than language. He speaks without looking at you. You are not being marked with someone else's story anymore. This one is yours. You glance down. The lines are longer this time, stretching along the inner arm like a vine climbing a tree. Within them are smaller symbols, a wave cresting into a spiral, a shape that looks like the moon halfway hidden, a triangle pointing inward. "What do they mean?" you ask, your voice hoarse. He replies without hesitation. "Wave is transformation, moon is memory, triangle is the self, before and after." You swallow. You've never thought about the before version of yourself as someone you'd miss. But now you do, not with sadness, just awareness. You are changing. And this time you'll be able to see it. As he works, the apprentice tells you a story. A man once came to our island from far away. He had a tattoo, a dragon on his back. Western style, colourful, loud. He chuckles. We admired it. It was beautiful. But when we asked him what it meant, he said, "I just like dragons." You nod, slowly. He didn't understand that a tattoo should do more than decorate. It should declare. You ask what yours declares. The Tufuga answers softly. That you listened before you spoke. He adds the final line. And suddenly, you're done. The silence returns. You sit there for a long time, your arms still humming from the tapping, skin warm, the ink a slick promise across your flesh. You finally stand. The village is bathed in golden light, sun just beginning to tip toward the ocean. Children run barefoot past you, their laughter high and sharp, like gulls. You catch a glimpse of your reflection in a bowl of water. Your second tattoo glows dark against your skin, and you realize you're not afraid of its permanence. You welcome it. Later that evening, a fire is lit on the shore, not for a festival, not for show, just because the stars are too beautiful to sit inside. You join the others around it, your new mark hidden beneath a loose sleeve. No one asks to see it, no one needs to. The way you carry your body now, careful, proud, like someone holding a full bowl, says enough. A younger woman sits beside you, plucking at a carved ukulele. She hums softly, then looks over. "You look different," she says. You smile. "I feel different." She nods. "That's how it's supposed to work." A silence passes, comfortable. Then she asks, "Do you know what you'll get next?" You shake your head. She shrugs. "Neither do I, but I'll know when it starts whispering." You think about that. Tattoos as whispers. Invisible stories waiting to be said out loud. Not all at once, just line by line. You stay by the fire long after the others have drifted off. The stars are sharp tonight, as if someone has polished each one with oil. You trace the edge of your second tattoo with your fingertips. It's tender, but it's alive. And you know now there are more to come because the story isn't finished. Your skin is just getting started. The next morning, the ocean calls you first. Not the people, not the drums, not even the familiar scent of coconut smoke. Just the sea. You step down from your hut before the sun even crests the hills, drawn by the soft, rhythmic hush of waves folding over themselves. The tide is low, the reef's edge exposed like a secret you're finally allowed to see. You wade in, careful and quiet, your freshly tattooed arm held just above the water. The salt stings a little, just enough to remind you that something permanent now lives beneath your skin. A woman is already standing waist-deep in the water ahead of you. She doesn't turn around, but raises one hand in greeting. You recognize her, the dancer from the celebration, the one whose wrist tattoos shimmered like silver hooks in the firelight. "This is when the ocean listens best," she says softly. You nod and move closer. She points to a patch of darker water where fish dart between coral heads. "Do you know the pattern on your arm matches that reef?" You look down, surprised. "It does?" She smiles. "Not exactly, but the flow, the bend, it's the same rhythm. That's how it works here. We copy the sea because it made us." She wades a little deeper, water lapping at her hips. "Some people think tattoos are just stories, but they're also tools." "Tools?" She nods. "For remembering, for guiding, for knowing who you are when you're far from shore." She lifts her arm and shows you her own mark, One long curved line from shoulder to elbow, intersected with triangles, dots and hook shapes. This is my father's fishing path. When I was a girl, I followed him through every part of the reef. He said if I ever got lost, I could use my arm to find my way home. You blink. That's not a metaphor. He meant it literally, you ask. She shrugs. Yes, and also not. She explains that in traditional Polynesian navigation, nothing was arbitrary. The tattoos matched reefs, stars, current lines, bird flight paths, even the wind. Some of the oldest patterns are actually maps, she says, drawn not for tourists but for the body. Because the body never forgets. You glance at your own ink again, tracing it with your eyes, wondering what hidden compass might already be forming. Historians still argue whether this ancient wayfinding system was entirely encoded into tattoos. Some believe the markings were more symbolic, more of a spiritual guide than a geographical one. Others insist the knowledge was precise enough to sail between islands without any written chart at all. But the people here, they don't need a consensus, they have their skin. She dips her head below the surface, then rises with a shake. Water beads on her forehead, catching the morning light. Come, she says, let's swim. You hesitate. Your tattoos still sore. You're not exactly trained for reef swimming. And also, have you seen the size of the sea cucumbers around here? But you go anyway. The water is warm and glass clear. Every movement beneath you is magnified. Fish flash like coins. Coral fingers stretch toward the surface. A sea turtle glides by, so close you could touch it. You both float in silence for a while, letting the current nudge you back toward shore. As you walk back to the sand, she says, I have a pattern on my foot that matches a sea urchin. It reminds me to tread lightly. You laugh. I'd need that one on both feet. She grins. You might. Later, back in the village, you sit with the apprentice beneath a tamanu tree. He's carving a paddle, not for use, just for ceremony. Even that has its patterns, fishbone motifs on the blade, star shapes down the handle, and one perfect circle at the center. That one, he says, pointing, is the sun. Not for light, but for time. You raise an eyebrow. You tattoo time? He nods. In cycles, in seasons, in where you are in your life. He leans closer, dropping his voice like he's letting you in on a secret. When you get older, we change the designs. Add to them. Sometimes cover them. Why? Because you are not the same person you were when you were 17. You think about that. About all the versions of yourself you've outgrown. The ones you shed quietly or painfully or with celebration. So your tattoos grow with you, you ask? He smiles. Just like your memory. That night, by firelight, you listen to an elder tell the story of a man who forgot who he was after an illness. Couldn't remember his family, his name, his own face. But he remembered the meaning of each tattoo, the elder says. And that was enough. We reminded him of the rest. It's not the punchline to a legend. It's just truth, delivered calmly with no need for embellishment. You look around the circle. Every face here is lit from below by flame, by history, by something wordless and heavy and beautiful. You wonder if they can see it on your face too. That shift, that compass, that beginning. As you crawl onto your mat later, you glance again at your arm. The lines are healing now, still tender but sealed. Your body has accepted them. And just like the reef, just like the sky, they are part of your map now. You turn onto your side, exhale slowly, and the last thought before sleep claims you is simple, quiet, and certain. I will never be lost again. You wake to soft rain. Not the angry, drumming kind, but a delicate sprinkle, like the sky's fingertips tapping gently at your roof. It seeps into the soil, into your thoughts, into the quiet morning that waits just outside your door. The smell is something else entirely, earthy, clean, alive. You step outside and tilt your face upward. The raindrops feel cool, almost ticklish, and for a moment you're unsure if they're falling from the sky or rising from the ground. In the village square, a group has gathered beneath the wide overhang of the community house. They're sitting in a half-circle, legs crossed, shoulders pressed close, watching someone move through the center space with slow, deliberate grace. It's a man, tall, stocky, his face carved with lines so intricate they seem to move as he does. His moko, as it's called, is not a simple tattoo. It is a living script, a bold, full-face canvas of ridges, spirals, hooks, and lines that follow every dip and curve of his face like shadow puppets dancing in unison. You realize what you're seeing. A tamoko.
A Maori tattoo. You've heard about Tia.
At them, of course. But seeing one in person is something else entirely. The man moves like someone made of stone and thunder. He walks, stands, speaks in a voice so deep it makes your chest vibrate. He's telling a story, but not with words alone. His face tells it too. Every raise of an eyebrow, every tilt of his chin, adds a layer. The lines across his nose pulse with anger. The spirals around his eyes seem to shimmer with grief. When he smiles, and he does, finally, it's like watching a cracked wall bloom with vines. After the performance, the tufuga nods to you. Go, speak to him. You hesitate, but your feet are already moving. The man meets you with a handshake so firm, you swear your bones realign. Kia ora, he says. I'm Hemi. His moko is mesmerizing up close. You want to stare, but you force yourself not to. He notices. It's okay, he says with a chuckle. It's made to be looked at. You ask him how long it took. Years, he replies. Not because it's big, but because I wasn't ready. He explains that moko isn't just a tattoo. It's a declaration of wakapapa, your genealogy. Every swirl and notch connects you to your tribe, your land, your ancestors. It's not an accessory, it's a biography. You ask how it's different from what you've seen here. He smiles. Here, tattoos tell your journey. In Aotearoa, they also prove it. You don't just wear moko, you live up to it. He points to a curve under his eye. This one marks my father's name. I didn't earn it until I stood where he stood, did what he did. Then to the chin. This is my commitment to my family. And the forehead. This is for the things I still don't understand. You pause. You inked what you don't know. He nods. Because I'll need the reminder. He tells you that the process of receiving a moko is different. While Polynesian tatau is done with tapping tools, traditional moko was once carved, literally chiseled into the skin with sharp bone or stone blades. The grooves were then filled with soot. The result was a textured face, not flat ink, but raised lines, like the earth itself had spoken. You wince. He chuckles. It hurt, but it also healed. You ask how. He looks out over the village. Because my grandfather died with no moko, he wasn't allowed. Too much shame, too much fear. He turns back to you. But I wear mine for both of us now. A silence passes. Historians still argue whether the banning of Te Moko was more social or governmental. Some blame Christian missionaries, others colonial law. But the truth is, for generations, Maori were discouraged, if not outright forbidden, from practicing their most sacred identity art. It nearly disappeared. But now men like Hemi wear it with thunder in their veins. Before leaving, he reaches into a woven bag and hands you something, a small, smooth stone with a spiral etched into it. For you, he says, you're learning to listen. You hold the stone in your palm. It's cool, but somehow not cold that night. As the rain picks up again, you sit in your hut, tracing the spiral with your thumb. You wonder what your own face would look like, covered in lines like his. Would your truths hold still long enough to be marked? You look in your small reflection bowl. Your face is unchanged, but your eyes are not the same. You no longer see yourself as a blank canvas. You see yourself as a growing one, and the ink is not finished speaking. It's well past dawn when you finally emerge the next day, but no one seems to mind. A few villagers glance your way with the kind of quiet understanding, only people who've had their skin speak back to them can offer. Your legs are stiff, your tattooed arm still tender beneath its healing wrap of bark cloth. But inside you feel taller. Not physically, just more present in your own body, like you're carrying something ancient now. And it's watching. Down by the tattoo hut, something new is happening. There's a boy sitting on the mat, maybe 13. His feet are bare, his hair combed back in that I'm trying not to be nervous, but I'm absolutely panicking kind of way. Around him, a quiet group of family members, his parents, aunts, cousins, even a grandmother with a cane carved from driftwood. No one is joking, no one is fidgeting. This is serious. You recognize the look in his eyes. He's about to receive his first tattoo. The tufuga appears, dressed in a dark wrap, carrying his tools the way a chef carries knives or a priest carries incense. He kneels beside the boy and places a hand on his chest. "You are ready," he says. The boy swallows hard, doesn't speak. You sit nearby on the edge of the circle, trying to make yourself invisible, but the boy's eyes flicker toward you for just a moment. You offer a small nod, the kind that says, "You're going to survive this." Even if it feels like your soul might crawl out of your foot and run away mid-session. The tufuga begins. Tap, 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 tap. It starts on the boy's shoulder, a curved mark, nothing too big, but placed where it will always be seen, even beneath a shirt. The design is clean, sharp, a basic arc with a split hook at one end. You whisper to the apprentice beside you. "What does it mean?" he murmurs back. "It's the tuimata, the opening eye. It means, I see." You glance at the boy. His eyes are closed, but the skin is wide awake. The pain is obvious. His jaw tightens, his toes curl, but he doesn't cry. He breathes, and when the tapping stops, he doesn't immediately collapse in relief. He just sits there, letting the moment echo. His grandmother steps forward and ties a necklace of shells around his neck. "You are seen now," she says. You sit with that for a while. You are seen now. There's no ceremony like this where you come from. No moment where a teenager is formally invited into adult life. No ritual that says, "Today, we trust you to carry more than yourself." The boy stands, slowly, carefully, and his entire family hums together, just one chord, deep and low. Not a song, not applause, just recognition. Later that afternoon, you're invited to a hut filled with women weaving mats. They work with pandanus leaves, softened and dyed in natural colors, brown, yellow, muted green. The air smells like warmth and patience. You ask about the boy's tattoo. One of the women smiles without looking up. "His body has started its sentence," she says. You ask how long it will take to finish. They all laugh gently. "Years," another says, "if he's lucky." You sit for a while, listening to the rustle of weaving, the creak of bamboo frames, the laughter of toddlers outside. One of the women leans over and shows you her tattoo, a small mark on her heel. You nearly missed it. "That's where I was marked at 13, she says. "Same as him. First step." You notice others showing their heel marks, quite simple, almost like the skin's signature. "We don't need to announce adulthood here," she continues. "We wear it, and we earn the rest." You realize something else. Every line you've seen so far is part of a conversation, a beginning, a declaration of readiness, not "look at me," but "watch who I become." You return to your hut before sunset and sit with your own tattoo, tracing the edge of it softly. You think about what it marked, what it whispered into your nerves as it was etched. You begin to understand that tattoos in this culture are not souvenirs. They're promises. The boy's face flashes in your memory, how still he sat, how open he was even in his fear. You lie back on your mat, letting the thatched ceiling blur above you, and you whisper to no one in particular, "I see." And somewhere in the distance, maybe in the tapping of a comb or the hush of the tide, something whispers back, "We see you too." You wake to a breeze that smells like salt, smoke, and fish scales drying in the sun. It's morning, but the village is already alive with movement. Pots clinking, laughter bouncing off palm trunks, the occasional squawk of a disgruntled chicken who clearly had opinions about breakfast distribution. Today you're heading out to sea. You're not sure how it was decided, but the Tufuga's apprentice tapped you on the shoulder at dawn and simply said, "We sail today. Bring water. Leave your shoes." And so, here you are, standing on the shoreline beside a long wooden canoe lashed together with senet fibre and painted in faded red and black patterns. The paddles are worn smooth by generations of hands. Carved symbols dance along the edge of the outrigger like tattoos in motion. The fisherman in charge is named Tassi. He's all sinew and sunburn, his skin a living mosaic of wave patterns, spear points, and animal shapes. He slaps the side of the canoe with one broad palm and says, "This one's named Lupe. She listens to the wind." You climb aboard, careful not to tip anything, including yourself. The others, 5 men and 1 woman, paddle with an easy grace that makes you feel like a large, confused house cat. The canoe slices through the water, gliding across the lagoon with quiet confidence. It feels less like a boat and more like a spell. The further out you go, the more the village vanishes behind you, until there's nothing but water, sky, and the occasional flying fish launching itself like it's late for something important. You notice tattoos on every arm around you, but today they aren't just symbols, they're references. Tassi taps his chest and points to a distant reef. "This line here," he says, showing you a curved mark that dips and rises like a low hill, "is for that coral shelf. We say it bites back if you're rude to it." The woman behind you has small triangular marks running down her forearm. She holds it up and grins. "This is my sail," she says. "It flaps when I get tired." You laugh, but you get it. Their bodies are not just marked, they're coded. Tassi points to a series of dots and dashes wrapping around his upper arm.
This part," he says. "That's my father's wind. He said you could feel it better when you know where it came from." You raise your eyebrows. "That's a wind pattern?" He nods. "East trade wind. It's tattooed in all my brothers. When we paddle together, we remember how he moved." You realize then these aren't decorations. These are instructions, reminders, maps. Polynesian tattoos, he continues, aren't for looking cool. They're for not dying. You laugh again, but it's the kind of laugh that leaves a stone behind in your chest, because you suddenly understand just how fragile and intentional everything here is. These people crossed thousands of miles of open ocean without maps, without metal, without GPS, just stars, instincts, and skin that told the story. Historians still debate how Polynesians navigated with such precision. Some say they followed bird patterns. Others insist they read ocean swells with their feet, using subtle changes in motion and vibration. A few suggest the entire ocean was once memorized, tattooed onto the minds of navigators through chants and rhythms, then later reinforced with tattoos on their bodies. You feel a small twinge of awe, and maybe just a little, like you've been spoiled by phone-based turn-by-turn directions. The canoe stops near a wide coral flat. You hop overboard, knee-deep in the warm shallows. The reef is teeming, purple urchins, darting parrotfish, sea cucumbers the size of small handbags. Someone hands you a spear. You hold it like someone who's about to either hunt dinner or accidentally stab their own foot. Tassi wades over and gestures toward your tattoo. "That part there," he says, pointing to a curl at the end of your pattern. "That's good reef luck." You blink. "What?" He grins. Ink listens. If you treat it right, it helps you. You don't know if he's being serious, poetic, or somewhere deliciously in between. You try fishing, you fail, spectacularly, but no one laughs. They show you again and again until you spear one wriggling silver fish and immediately apologize to it for the surprise ending. As the sun dips lower, you paddle back toward the island. Your muscles ache, your skin glows, your stomach growls, but your heart is wide open. Back on land, you collapse near the fire pit, fish roasting over coals,
smoke trailing lazily upward like a prayer that doesn't need to ask for anything. Tarsi sits beside you and hands you a carved shell cup filled with something sweet and sticky. "Drink," he says. "You paddled like a turtle, but you didn't fall in. That's worth celebrating." You clink shells. As night drapes itself across the sky, you sit in comfortable silence. Everyone's skin glistens with sweat and salt, and on every limb, line, and curve of ink, you see the day written in symbols. Waves conquered, reefs respected, winds remembered. And you finally get it. Tattoos here aren't souvenirs of where you've been. They're tools for where you're going, a compass etched in flesh, a guide whispering beneath the skin. A way of saying, without words, I came home. You sleep hard that night, deep and dreamless, like someone who's handed over their thoughts to the sea and trusted it not to drown them. But when you wake, your muscles remind you that paddling for hours with questionable form does in fact come with consequences. You hobble out of your hut like a much older version of yourself and collapse near the morning fire where the village is already alive with chatter and breakfast prep. Someone hands you a woven leaf packet of warm coconut rice. Someone else pats your sore shoulder in sympathy. It's all so easy, so natural, like you've always belonged. But today something new is stirring. The Tufuga calls you over with a simple gesture and you follow, the rice still half-eaten in your hand. He leads you not to the tattoo hut, but to a shaded area behind it, partially hidden by a tangle of flowering vines and volcanic stones. There, sitting in the sand, is one of the elders. You've seen him before, but never spoken to him directly. His body is quiet, unmoving, but his eyes, sharp, calculating, as if he's always 5 steps ahead in a conversation that hasn't started yet. "This is Tama," the Tufuga says. "He's our wayfinder. He teaches the symbols that carry you through." Tama doesn't greet you. He just gestures to sit, and you do. In front of him, drawn in the sand, is a simple design, 3 lines radiating from a central point. You assume it's a star, maybe a wave. He sees your confusion and raises one bushy eyebrow. "What do you see?" he asks. You hesitate. "A compass?" He nods once. "Good, but also wrong." "Okay, great. This will be one of those lessons." He picks up a shell and presses it into the center point, then leans in. "This is your kala, your center. From it, you move in all directions, but the direction you choose tells the story." He draws another line, slightly curved, with a jagged bend in the middle. "This is your choice. This is when your grandmother died and you didn't know how to cry properly. This is when you didn't call someone back. This is when you moved cities because you were chasing something but told everyone you were exploring opportunities." You stare at him. "Is that last one supposed to be hypothetical?" He grins. You realize he's not reading your mind, he's just reading everyone's story. Because we all bend, all jag, all pretend we're following stars when we're really just running from shadows. "The tattoo," he says, pointing to your arm, "isn't just a pattern. It's a sentence. But the way you walk changes how it's read." He begins to draw symbols in the sand. Shark teeth, ocean swirls, bird wings, canoes, eyes. These are kupesi, pattern forms. We use them in mats, carvings, tattoos, chants. They are not pictures, they are intention. You repeat the word quietly. "Kupesi." He nods. "Some mark danger, others guidance. Some are warnings you don't recognize until it's too late." You ask if they're ever misused. He pauses, always, especially by those who copy without asking. He wipes the sand clean with one broad sweep of his hand. "Westerners come," he says. "They get a turtle on their back, a warrior band around the bicep. I love Polynesian culture," they say. "But do they love the burden? Do they love the responsibility?" You shift uncomfortably. What if they don't know? Then they shouldn't mark what they don't understand. You feel that. Hard. He isn't angry, just tired, like someone who's seen too many sacred things turned into souvenirs. You ask if it can ever be okay, if someone from outside can truly earn the ink. Tama studies you, Finally, he says, "Yes, but it must begin with silence, with listening, with humility, and with permission." He adds another shell to the design in the sand, because every line we carry is borrowed from the ancestors. You must ask if you're worthy to borrow it. You think of all the designs you've seen back home, tattoos in gym mirrors, ink in magazine ads, mass-produced tribal patterns sold on t-shirts. How many were copied, how many stolen, and how many people ever asked who those lines originally belonged to? Tama looks at your arm. "Your ink listens," he says. "It hasn't forgotten its place." You exhale. Because neither have you. That evening you return to the beach. The tide is out again, revealing tide pools like tiny glass windows into alien worlds. In one of them, a starfish clings to a rock, pulsing gently with the rhythm of the sea. You kneel beside it and notice, on its skin, a natural pattern. Dots, ridges, radiating lines, nature's tattoo. You watch it for a long while. Because here, everything speaks in ink. Not always the kind you pour into skin, but in ripples, scars, shadows, and stories. You leave the tide pool behind and return to your hut. You sit cross-legged in the doorway, watching the last light fade. And you whisper, mostly to yourself, "I will only wear what I'm willing to carry." The wind hears you, so does the ink. You wake the next morning to hushed voices and a quiet sense of gravity in the air. Not fear, not urgency, but reverence, the kind that makes people speak in softer tones and move a little slower, like the whole island is holding its breath. You find the apprentice sweeping fallen leaves from the path with a bundle of dried palm fibers. He looks up as you approach and nods. "Today we honor those who've gone." You follow him without question. At the far end of the village, where the trees grow thicker and the ground rises into gentle hills, there's a grove you haven't seen before. Tall tamanu trees form a kind of natural cathedral, their roots knotted and twisted like old fingers folded in prayer. Scattered among the trees are small mounds of stones, some with seashells resting atop them, others marked with simple wooden carvings. No names, no dates, just symbols. You realize these are graves, but not sad ones. There's a peace here, like this place doesn't mourn, it remembers. A group has already gathered, elders, children, parents, all dressed in wraps of muted color. Some carry drums, others bring food. No one cries. They sit in a wide circle, and in the center, tattoos, not people with tattoos, just tattoos, laid out carefully on pieces of bark cloth, are wooden replicas of tattoos, carved and stained in black. Spirals, birds, wave patterns, each one representing someone who's passed on. A woman stands and begins to sing, not loudly, not mournfully, just a soft, repetitive chant in a language you don't know but somehow feel anyway. It winds through the trees, across the grass and into your chest. You watch as others begin to place their replica tattoos in the center of the circle. Some add offerings, food, leaves, shells, a strand of hair. A carved comb. You lean toward the apprentice. "What are the tattoo pieces for?" He replies quietly. When someone dies, we mark their patterns here, so we don't forget them. So their lines continue. You stare at the small symbols, their edges softened by time. "Do people ever copy them?" you ask. He shakes his head. "No, we never reuse a design exactly. That would be stealing the life of the one who carried it. But we echo them, honor them." He gestures toward your own arm. "See this curl in your second tattoo? That came from a man who sailed alone for 50 days. He passed before you came. But his story wanted to continue, so you carry a thread. You touch the curve. It tingles faintly. You've been walking around with a fragment of someone else's memory, not stolen, shared. The woman's chant fades and others begin to speak. Short phrases, names, moments. Each word punctuated by silence. My father's laugh lived in his shoulder tattoo. My sister's mark was the bird on her wrist. She said it flew her out of dark places. He didn't speak much, but his chest was loud. And then the Tufuga speaks. He stands, tall and still, and simply says, "They are not gone, they are just skinless now." And somehow that makes more sense than any funeral you've ever attended. The ceremony continues until dusk. Children sleep in laps. Old men doze with their eyes half open. The forest hums. As the last light fades, a fire is lit in the center of the circle. Not large, just enough to burn the edges of bark cloth gently, releasing the tattoo replicas into smoke. The lines must travel, someone says, so they can find new skin when they're ready. That night, back in your hut, you can't sleep. Not from discomfort, not from noise, but from awareness. You're aware of your skin, you're aware that it carries pieces of other people's stories, that you are, quite literally, not alone in your body anymore. You wonder who else's echoes you might already be carrying, through your laugh, your scars, your stubbornness. Traits you thought were your own might just be inherited tattoos, invisible but inked into behavior. You rise quietly and walk outside, the moon casting a soft glow over everything. You sit cross-legged in the sand, facing the sea, and close your eyes. And you say the names of the people you've lost, one by one, slowly. Even the ones you never tattooed, even the ones who would never understand why you came here. You whisper them to the waves, and when you're done, you press your palm to your chest. And for the first time, you imagine it, a tattoo there, right above your heart, small, quiet, just a single line, a thread of remembering. The sun rises soft and pink the next morning, and the world feels tender, as if it too stayed up late remembering. Your body is sore in the pleasant, lived-in way, like your muscles are finally catching up to everything your spirit's been carrying. But it's not just fatigue. There's something stirring underneath your skin, something that hums low and steady like a song you haven't learned all the lyrics to yet. As you make your way to the village square, you see the Tufuga waiting beneath the shade of the old breadfruit tree. No tools today, no mats, just him, sitting cross-legged, palms resting on his knees like he's been waiting for hours. He nods for you to join him. "We are going to watch the body move." You blink. "You mean dancing?" "Sort of," he says, but slower, more honest, no pretending. You sit. Others begin to gather too, tattooed elders, young men and women, even some children, barefoot and curious. At the center of the square, a woman steps forward. She's tall and lean, with grey at her temples and a long, flowing wrap that moves like sea foam around her ankles. She stands perfectly still. And then she begins, but not to music, to silence. Her arms rise slowly, wrists twisting like vines. Her feet shift 1 inch at a time. Her entire body moves with such focus, it feels like watching ink flow in real time. You realize quickly, this is not performance, this is communication. Each motion matches the lines on her skin.
As she raises her
arm, the tattoos there stretch and rotate, revealing different angles. What was once a static curve now becomes a wave. A triangle expands into a mountain. A sunburst folds and unfolds like a breathing lung. The Tufuga leans toward you. "This is Siva Malu," he whispers, "a sacred movement of tattooed women." He explains that in Samoan tradition, women receive a tattoo called the malu, delicate, lace-like patterns that run from the upper thighs to just below the knees. It is the counterpart to the pia, the heavier, darker male tattoo. The malu is not about strength, he says. It is about service, about carrying dignity without shouting. You watch her move. Every bend, every pause feels like an offering. Her tattooed calves ripple as she shifts her weight. The marks behind her knees, thin as reed stems, seem to shimmer with each step. And then you notice something else. She's not alone. Another woman steps forward, younger. Her tattoos are newer, sharper in contrast. She mirrors the first woman, not perfectly, but in Eksh, ho like a second verse, sung slightly off-key. Then another joins, and another. Soon, The square is full of tattooed women, each moving with her own rhythm, but somehow weaving into the same dance. Their malu patterns flash and fade, depending on the angle of their legs, the slope of their feet, the breath between steps, and it hits you. These tattoos were never meant to be still. They were made to move. You glance around, no one speaks. Even the children are quiet, not out of politeness, but out of awe. The tufuga murmurs, "We tattoo dancers differently. Each design must consider how the body bends, how the joints breathe. A good malu looks beautiful on still skin. A great one comes alive when it walks." You think about all the tattoos back home, designed for Instagram photos, mirror selfies, static poses under fluorescent lights. But here, the ink lives, and when it moves, it remembers. One dancer steps forward, her hands raised. She lowers to her knees, the marks on her thighs exposed now, not in shame, not in show, but in full confidence. Each line there is a story of responsibility. She is a teacher, the tufuga says. Each mark is for a child she's helped raise. Another dancer turns, showing the gentle arc of patterns beneath the back of her knee. That one sings at funerals, he adds. She carries grief for those who cannot. The movements slow, then stop. One by one, the dancers return to stillness. No applause, no bow, just silence, the kind that hangs in the air like dew. And then the eldest dancer speaks. Her voice is soft, but it cuts clean. "When I received my malu, I was told it would hurt. And it did. But what no one said was how light I would feel afterward." She smiles faintly. Because some burdens are meant to be shared. And tattoos, when placed with care, help you carry them. You sit with that for a long time. Later, as the square empties and people return to their work, you stay seated. You're thinking about movement now, about how your own tattoos might shift when you walk, how they might speak when you're too tired to form words, how they might one day tell someone else. Here is where they bent, but did not break. You look down at your leg, unmarked, and for the first time it feels empty, not incomplete. Just waiting, the tufuga sits beside you. He doesn't speak, but after a while, he draws a simple curve in the dust with his finger. "It's not time yet," he says, "but it's close." And you nod, because your body already knows. There are still parts of you that need to move before they can be marked. And when they do, the ink will follow. You spend the next few days in a kind of gentle trance, where time softens at the edges and everything feels like it's unfolding exactly when it's meant to. Your body, still healing, moves slower. Your thoughts come quieter. Even the sea seems to hush a little when you walk by. You help with daily tasks now, not because you're expected to, but because your hands want to. You weave leaves, you sort taro roots. You carry bundles of firewood and pretend they're not as heavy as they absolutely are. One morning, while scrubbing a cooking pot with sand and coconut husk, you overhear a conversation that stops you mid-scrub. "Did you hear about Manu's dream?" a young woman whispers. "He says the tattoo spoke to him," replies another, giggling behind her hand. "Said it moved in his sleep." You freeze. It's said casually, like gossip, like village hearsay, but something about it prickles your spine. Later you ask the apprentice if it's true. He doesn't laugh, he just nods. "It happens." "Wait, dreaming about your tattoo moving?" "Sometimes it speaks, sometimes it shows something new, sometimes it warns you." You stare at him. "You're serious." He shrugs. "Tattoos are alive, we only borrow them. Sometimes they borrow us." He explains that in Polynesian belief, especially among the oldest families of tattooing lineages, it's understood that tattoos can shift in meaning over time, not just because of new marks, but because of spirit. Spirit moves, and so the ink does too. Some people have reported waking up and sensing that their tattoo is trying to communicate. Others feel heat or pressure, or dream of their ink turning into animals, symbols, even people. You ask if anyone's ever been afraid of it. the apprentice considers this. Not afraid, but some people choose to cover a tattoo when it becomes too loud, or when the meaning changes. That's part of the relationship. That word again, relationship. It's becoming clear that in this world, your tattoo isn't a souvenir or a design. It's a companion, a living spiritual echo of who you were, who you are, and who you might be on a day you haven't met yet. That evening, you lie on your mat, staring at the ceiling, your arms stretched out beside you, tattooed lines dimly visible in the glow of firelight. And you wonder, what if mine speaks? What would it say? Would it remember something I've forgotten? Would it remind me of someone I tried to let go? You drift into sleep, and the dream comes. It's slow at first. Just a beach, then a shape. Someone standing near the waterline, half in shadow. You walk toward them. They raise their arm, and it's your tattoo, but it's different, longer. Twisting up toward the shoulder now, new symbols, a hook, a star, an empty circle. And then the figure turns, and it's not someone else. It's you, but older, sadder, stronger. They say nothing, just smile, faintly, and touch the tattoo on their arm. And you wake up. Your hut is still. The coals of the fire pulse softly. Outside, the wind has picked up, rustling the trees like a lullaby told in code. You sit up, heart thudding. It was just a dream, wasn't it? You look down at your arm. The tattoo is exactly as it was, but your relationship with it has changed. It feels like it knows now. The next day, you share the dream with the tufuga. You half expect him to dismiss it or grin and say something sarcastic. Instead, he nods solely, solemnly. You saw the path, he says. You ask what that means. Your tattoo is a map. It was always unfinished. Now it has shown you where to go next. He doesn't mean geographically. You know that. He means something else. Growth, challenge, change. You don't need to rush, he adds. But when it's time to receive the next mark, you won't have to ask. Your skin will itch with knowing. And you understand. That night, you sit by the fire and look around at the people who have quietly become your teachers, your companions, your accidental family. You watch a young woman helping an elder bind her foot with leaves. The elder's calves are covered in delicate patterns that you now know tell of mourning and protection and ocean crossings. You watch a boy tracing a design into the sand with a stick, repeating the same symbol again and again until he gets the curve just right. And you realize that none of them are trying to be anything. They are. And their ink simply reflects that. You look at your arm again, you whisper to it. And in the flicker of firelight, you could almost swear it answers, keep walking, I'll catch up. You spend the next few days moving slower, not out of fatigue, but out of respect. Respect for what you've learned, for what you've unlearned, and for the quiet presence of your tattoos, which now feel less like marks on your body and more like windows into it. And just when you think you've seen it all, the island offers something unexpected. Silence. No tapping, no ceremonies, no carving. The tufuga and his apprentice are nowhere to be seen. The tattoo hut is empty. At first, it unnerves you. You've grown so used to the rhythm, the daily tap, 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 that seems to sync with your breath, your steps, your pulse, that its absence feels almost wrong. You ask around, gently. No one gives a straight answer, just knowing smiles and phrases like, it's the still week, or even the ink needs to sleep. Eventually, one of the elders takes pity on your confusion and explains, once every season, the tools are put to rest. Not buried, not hidden, just honored, allowed to be silent. They carry our pain, she says, gently slicing a breadfruit with the kind of precision that suggests she's done it in her sleep. So we give them space to let it go. You realize this silence isn't a pause, it's part of the process. That night, you sit beside the empty tattoo hut. It feels strange watching the space where so much transformation has occurred, now resting like a tired animal. The tools, you're told, have been cleaned with seawater and tucked into cloth, not to hide them, but to give them peace. Like warriors returning from battle, or storytellers who've finally run out of breath, and in their absence, the stories shift. Instead of fresh tattoos, people gather to share how their tattoos have changed them, not physically, but emotionally. One man shows you a line across his forearm. This one, he says, was for protection. I got it when I was angry all the time. I thought it would make me stronger. He chuckles. But what I needed wasn't defense. It was direction. It took me 5 years to understand what this line was actually pointing toward. A young woman next to him lifts her shirt slightly to show a symbol on her ribs. I thought this was a wave, she says. Turns out it's a spine. I got it after I left home for good. It reminds me I don't need someone else's permission to stand. The circle grows warmer, more open. People begin to describe things they've never shared aloud. A father who tattooed a broken spear after losing his brother. A grandmother who wears a bird on her ankle, not for flight, but for return. One man, older than the hills and twice as quiet, simply taps his chest over a faded sunburst tattoo and says, "This one? I got it when I realized I could still forgive my father, even after he was gone." You don't speak, but inside, your own tattoos shift slightly. Not physically, but perceptibly. Like they're listening, adjusting, accepting their role in your unfolding. Later, you walk alone along the reef as the tide returns. The stars are bright tonight, arranged like bone combs scattered across velvet. And then you see something. A carving, not big, not obvious. Just a symbol etched into a flat piece of coral, half submerged near the tide line. It's weathered, but still visible. A pair of curves locked together like waves colliding. Or people. You touch it. You don't know who placed it there, or when, but you understand what it means. Connection. You sit there for a long time, letting the sea soak your feet, letting your tattoos soak in the moonlight, until your skin no longer feels like yours alone. It feels ancient, borrowed, echoing. When you return to the village, no one's waiting, no fire circle, no feast, just your own hut. And that's enough. You crawl onto your mat, roll onto your side, and press your tattooed arm against your chest. You breathe in the silence, and your tattoos breathe with you. The next morning, the tools return. You can hear it before you even open your eyes. The first few tentative taps of wood on bone, echoing softly through the village like someone relearning the beat of their own heart. The still week is over, but something feels different, not louder, not rushed, just deeper. Like the silence has tuned everything to a new frequency. You stretch, feeling the comforting pull of your tattoos as you rise. They're healing now, the skin less tender, the edges of the designs settling into their final shapes. They no longer feel like open doors. They feel like etched foundations. You head toward the tattoo hut, but are stopped halfway by a ripple of murmurs. People moving in one direction, toward the edge of the village, toward the sea. You follow. There, on the sand, stands a man you've never seen before. Tall, broad, hair streaked with silver. His arms are inked, but only halfway, bands of pattern that stop just short of the shoulders, as if paused mid-thought. He's barefoot, holding a cloth-wrapped bundle. The tufuga waits beside him, hands folded, gaze unreadable. The man speaks first. His voice is hoarse but sure. "I was marked as a boy, but I never finished." He unwraps the bundle, revealing a single ayu, a tattoo comb, its bone teeth gleaming despite the years. "I want to finish what I ran from." You learn, through whispered fragments from the villagers around you, that this man was once one of their own. He left as a teenager, fled the process midway through, vanished across the sea. "Too painful," someone mutters. "Too proud," says another. But now, decades later, he's back. The tufuga nods slowly, then steps forward. He places one hand on the man's chest, not pushing, not blessing, just acknowledging. Then he turns and walks toward the hut, and the man follows. No ceremony, no speech, just a return. You sit outside the hut all morning, listening to the tapping. It's slower than usual, more careful. Each stroke feels measured, as though the tools are reacquainting themselves with skin they once knew. The apprentice passes you on his way out, wiping sweat from his brow. He asks to finish it exactly how it started, he says. Same pattern, same comb. You think about that. About people returning to complete things they once ran from. About lines paused, not broken. That night, the man walks past your hut on his way to the sea. He doesn't speak, but he nods at you. And in his step, there's something new, not confidence, peace. You rise and follow him down to the water. He stands ankle-deep in the tide, moonlight draped over his back, the final band of his tattoo, now complete. A single line across the shoulder blade that ties all the others together. A stitch through time. He submerges for a moment, then rises, gasping, but not from effort, from relief. You sit on a rock and watch. Eventually, he joins you. I didn't understand it back then, he says, watching the waves. What changed? He shrugs. I didn't. The ink did. You frown. You mean it became easier? He laughs. No, it became necessary. He explains that for years he thought of tattoos as something tribal, backward, performative. But as he moved further from the island, the silence in him grew. He couldn't name it, couldn't describe it. Until one day, I caught myself tracing the half-finished line on my arm. Every day, like it itched under the skin. So he came back. He pauses, then adds, I thought I needed to complete the tattoo. Turns out it needed to complete me. You sit together in silence, letting the waves smooth over the moment like wet hands over stone. After a while, he rises, nods again, and walks away, back toward the village. And you realize not all returns come with applause, some just come with breath. The next day, the Tafuga tells you about others like him. Some come back after 5 years, some after 50, some never do. You ask if the door is always open. He looks up from his tools. The skin waits, he says. So do we. That afternoon, you sit near the carving circle, where younger apprentices shape bone combs and inkstones, their fingers sticky with soot and coconut oil. You're handed a blank piece of turtle shell. Make something, one girl says. You hesitate. What? She shrugs. Whatever wants to come out. You sit in the shade and begin to carve. A curl, a line, a broken hook, a circle that doesn't close. When you finish, you realize what it is. The beginning of your next tattoo. You didn't plan it, but it spoke anyway. You tuck the piece into your pouch, where it clinks softly against your shell of dried ink and the carved figure from the memory garden. Pieces of yourself, waiting to be assembled. You return to your hut as the sun sets, the air thick with wood smoke and quiet laughter. And just before you sleep, you press your fingers, jers to your tattoos, and you ask, are we finished yet? They pulse once, then rest. The next morning, before the first bird can clear its throat, you're already awake, not because something startled you, but because something pulled you. An idea, or maybe a memory you haven't lived yet. You rise and step outside. The sky is still indigo with a hint of dawn pressing gently at the edges like a shy guest at a village feast. The village sleeps. Even the pigs are too polite to snort. You walk, no destination, just that quiet tug. Your feet lead you through the path behind the tattoo hut, past the grove of tamanu trees where spirits whisper when no one listens, past the tide pools where you first understood the language of skin. You climb. It's not a mountain, really, just a large hill with a gentle slope hidden behind curtains of green. You didn't know it was here until your legs did. At the top, a clearing. A single stone platform sits there, old and square, moss clinging to its sides like a shawl. Carvings decorate its edges, swirls, eyes, hands, waves. You sit. You don't ask why, you just sit. The wind up here tastes different, sharper, thinner, with a little more story in it. As the sun begins to rise, gold filters through the trees and hits the stone at just the right angle, making it glow faintly. You whisper, "What is this place?" And the answer comes, not in words but in knowing. This is where they sat. The first tufuga, the first hands to hold the comb, the ones who didn't have names you'd recognize, but whose lines now live on 1,000 bodies. You run your hand over the surface of the stone. It's warm from the sun now, humming with quiet history. Your fingers trace a small mark, barely visible, worn nearly smooth. It looks like a fishhook, or a question mark, or maybe both. Below it, another curl, incomplete. You smile. Some symbols never finish themselves. They're not broken, just waiting for the next hand. You take out the turtle shell you carved days ago, hold it up to the morning light. It matches, not perfectly, but closely enough to make your chest ache in that sweet, unbearable way. Later, when you return to the village, the tufuga sees you from across the square. He doesn't speak. He just lifts a hand, 2 fingers touching his temple, then sweeping outward. Recognition. You nod. That afternoon, you're invited to help prepare a new ink blend. You've never been asked before. You sit cross-legged in the shade with 3 elders who pass you a charred coconut shell and a smooth stone for grinding. Beside it, soot, oil, crushed leaves, and something that smells like burnt bark and nostalgia. "Don't stir too fast," one elder warns. "Don't stir too slow," says another. "Just stir like you've been stirred before," says the third with a wink. You grin. Your hands work. The ink thickens, darkens, begins to smell like memory. As you stir, you listen to their stories. "I once tattooed a canoe captain who wept every time I touched the comb to his chest," one says. "Not from pain, from relief. I saw a woman receive her malu while giving birth," says another. "The baby came out just as the last line was tapped. My tattoo moved when my brother died," the third says softly. "It shifted. You might not believe it, but I couldn't see it the same afterward." You do believe it. You felt it. You stir until the ink reaches the perfect thickness, and then you watch as it's poured into a carved gourd and sealed with leaves. Not with reverence, with friendship. Ink, after all, is not precious here. It's trusted. The tufuga approaches, hands behind his back, watching. He picks up the ink, weighs it in his palm, then turns to you. "You're ready to mark," he says. You blink. "To receive." He shakes his head. "To give." Silence stretches between you like a hammock between 2 palm trees. "But I don't know the symbols," you say. You know enough to ask permission. "I'm not trained. Neither were the first ones." You hesitate. He sets down a blank piece of bark cloth, places a bone comb beside it. "Start," he says. Your hands tremble, but they move, not to copy, not to mimic, to speak. A curl, a wave, a half moon. You don't try to impress, you try to listen. And somehow the symbols flow, not as decoration, but as response. When you're finished, the tufuga says nothing. He simply rolls up the cloth and tucks it away. That night, you lie awake in your hut. The stars outside your window blink like watching eyes. And your tattoos feel warmer than usual, like they're leaning in to whisper, "This is just the beginning." You don't sleep much that night, not out of restlessness, but because your body won't stop listening to the wind, to your skin, to the ink that seems to hum beneath your surface like a lullaby with no end. You rise early, earlier than usual, and for once, the village is already awake before you. Something's in the air, not tension, not celebration, anticipation. At the tattoo hut, the mats are being laid with extra care. Bundles of herbs hang from the ceiling beams. Water basins are refreshed. The old combs are laid out like sacred cutlery, awaiting a silent feast. The tufuga sits in the center. He's not working, he's waiting. The apprentice, unusually quiet, gestures for you to sit beside the hut, in the place where you usually observe. But then the tufuga speaks. "Not there," he says without looking up. Inside. You freeze. Inside the hut, only tattoo recipients are invited in, or those assisting. You glance at the apprentice. He nods once, slowly. You cross the threshold. Inside, everything smells like soot and oil and memory. The light is low, filtered through the woven walls in dappled stripes. A man sits cross-legged on the mat, bare-chested, calm, silent. Beside him, a small girl, his daughter maybe 8 years old, clutches a length of fabric between her fingers. Her eyes are wide, but not afraid. You sit behind the tufuga, heart drumming a little too hard in your chest. He begins. Tap, tap, tap. You've heard this sound for weeks now, but today it feels different. Sharper, slower, deeper. Each strike of the comb into skin is like a drumbeat, telling time backward. The ink flows, the patterns emerge, not as pictures, as meaning. And then he gestures to you, hands you the smallest O-comb, points to the next mark on the man's chest. You hesitate. Not too deep, he murmurs, but not too light. The skin will know if you lie. You press the comb gently. The apprentice holds the stick. You raise the mallet, exhale, tap. The man doesn't flinch. Tap. A bead of ink forms. Tap. You finish the curve. It's nothing big, just a connector, a linking stroke. But it matters, because now you are part of this man's story. His chest will carry a line that came from your hands. You pass the comb back. The tufuga nods and continues. Hours pass, you don't move, you barely breathe. You learn how pain looks when worn with pride, how breath slows under fire, how skin opens to story like bark under a blade. When it's finished, the man stands, sways slightly, smiles. His daughter presses her fingers to his chest, right on the mark you placed. It looks like the wave near our house, she says. He doesn't correct her, because maybe it does. Later, outside, the tufuga sits with you under a tree. He says nothing for a while. Then, do you know what you gave him? A line, you say. He shakes his head, a promise that he wasn't alone, that his pain became part of something greater. You nod slowly. Do you remember your dream? He asks. You do. You mark the older version of yourself. But maybe, he says, that version was marking you. The weight of that settles in your ribs. You realize now tattooing isn't about memory alone. It's about translation, from experience to ink, from pain to permanence, from person to people. The next day, you're invited to help draw patterns for a young woman's malu. It's her first tattoo. She's quiet, nervous, but determined. You sit across from her and begin to sketch with ink-dipped bamboo on her legs. The first lines are faint, then sharper. She watches the design form. Each stroke becomes a question she didn't know she'd asked. Each space between marks becomes a breath she didn't know she'd held. By the end, you've mapped her strength before the needle even touches her skin. She stands, looks down, and says, I didn't know I could carry this. And you say, you already do. The ink just caught up. That night, you return to the stone platform. You bring with you the bark cloth with your first designs, and the carved turtle shell, and the comb you used for that single mark. You set them on the stone, one by one. Then, without ceremony, you add something new, a curl, drawn with your fingertip in the dust, open-ended, unfinished. Because you finally understand, no tattoo is ever done, it just rests between stories. The rain comes suddenly, no warning, no rumble, just a swift gust of wind, a rustle of trees, and then rain, not cold, not violent, but full. Like a sky that's been holding its breath for weeks and finally exhales. You're helping the apprentice bind bundles of dried pandanus leaves when it starts, and within seconds you're both soaked. He laughs and lets the pile drop, arms stretched wide, face tilted up like a kid on the first day of summer. You do the same. Why not? Your tattoos gleam in the rain, fresh and dark and glistening, lines dancing like wet seaweed on skin. I love when this happens, the apprentice says, shaking water from his hair. Rain cleans more than dust. You're beginning to understand that here, everything has layers. Rain isn't just weather, it's renewal, it's cleansing. It's punctuation in a language written across earth and sky and flesh. By the time the rain slows the entire villa, Illage feels brighter, lighter, as if the weight of stories, inked and otherwise, has been rinsed clean for a moment. But the silence that follows isn't empty, it's expectant. Later, you find the Tufuga sitting beneath a thatched awning, sharpening his O-combs with a piece of coral. He doesn't look up. "Sit," he says, without invitation. "You do." "You know the story of the rain turtle?" he asks. You shake your head. He taps the side of one comb, tiny teeth lined like piano keys. "She lives in the mountains. She only comes down when the land forgets to breathe. She scratches open the clouds with her shell, and they remember how to cry." You wait for the punchline, the wink, the sarcasm. It doesn't come. "She's also the one who gave us the first comb," he adds. "Her shell cracked on stone. The pieces fell. A boy found them. He tapped them against driftwood and made music. That music became ink." You exhale slowly. "Is it true?" you ask. The Tufuga smiles, eyes still focused on his comb. "Does it matter?" "Fair enough." He places the comb down and looks at you. Really looks, the way he did the first day you met. "It's time," he says. "For what?" "For your next mark." You freeze. "I thought I'd—" "Wait. Let this one settle longer." He tilts his head. It has settled, but it's not finished. "Remember the dream?" You do, of course you do. The older version of yourself. The new lines on your shoulder, the silent figure gesturing for you to follow. You nod. "Where?" you ask. He taps the left side of his chest just below the collarbone. "Here," he says. And you know why. Not because it's traditional, not because it looks good, because it's the place closest to remembering. That night, under a sky still slick from rain, you lie back on the mat and offer your body again. The tapping begins. It's different this time. Not more painful, not louder, but more personal. The comb sinks into your skin with a strange kind of joy, like your body was waiting, no asking for this moment. You don't try to decipher the pattern as it forms. You don't need to. You feel it. Each line a sentence, each dot a pause, each curve a turn you didn't see coming. At one point, the Tufuga leans close and murmurs, "This is the turtle's line." You whisper back, "The one that scratches the sky?" He grins, "The one that heals it." Hours pass like wind. When it's done, the pain is sharp, but the weight is gone. You sit up slowly. Your hand presses the new tattoo, and it's warm, fevered, alive. You don't ask what it means. You already know. The next day, children point to your chest. "That's a storm turtle," one says. "No, it's a broken star," says another. They argue. You laugh. And deep inside, your tattoo pulses quietly, not in protest, in agreement. Because sometimes it's both. The days blur after that. Not because you forget them, but because they start to flow together, like waves that crest and fold into each other, soft and seamless, without hard edges or obvious breaks. You rise with the sun. Help with food, carry firewood, sit beside the tattoo hut without needing a reason. And your newest mark, curved and patient just below your collarbone, settles into you like an old friend moving into the guest room for good. People notice. Not just the ink, the change. You walk differently now, not taller, not prouder, just clearer. Like your spine stopped whispering and finally said, "This is the way." Even the Tufuga treats you differently. He no longer watches you like a puzzle. He nods when you speak, trusts you with tools, lets you mix ink unsupervised, which is terrifying. One morning, while you're rinsing coconut husks in the stream, an elder woman sits beside you without warning. She carries a bundle of cloth and smells like salt and fruit and some kind of leaf that makes your nose tingle. She opens the bundle. Inside, a scroll of bark cloth covered in symbols. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Some you recognize, waves, birds, hooks. Others are foreign, tight spirals, jagged branches, shapes like angry commas. These are mine, she says, matter of fact. She touches her thigh. These were done when I left my father's house. Her hip. These when I lost my first child. Her shoulder. These for forgiveness. She points to a design near the edge of the cloth, a simple dot within a circle. I haven't earned that one yet, she says. Still working on it. You blink. You're planning your next tattoo? She nods. It's a slow one, the kind you grow into. You stare at the symbol. It's small, quiet, unassuming, but something about it makes your chest tighten. What does it mean? She smiles. Peace. But not the soft kind, the kind you wrestle with, the kind that only comes after you stop running. She rolls the cloth back up, tucks it into her bag, and stands. Before she walks away, she says, "It helps to know what you're aiming for, even if you're not ready." And just like that, she's gone. You sit for a long time, thinking about unfinished tattoos, about growing into symbols the way trees grow into wind. Slowly, on purpose, with scars. That night you ask the Tafuga if you can draw again. He doesn't ask why, just hands you the tools. You sit by the fire, ink bowl in your lap, bamboo stick in hand, and you start to sketch, not from memory, not from design, from feeling. Your hand moves slowly, line, curl, pause, dot, circle, you stop. It's the same symbol the elder woman showed you, a dot within a circle. But yours is a little different. Your circle isn't closed. There's a tiny break in it, just wide enough to let something in. You stare at it for a long time. Then you set the cloth aside, because you're not ready to wear it yet. But you're ready to imagine it. The next morning, you wake with a strange hunger, not for food, but for movement. You run, not far, just past the tamanu trees, down to the reef. The wind is wild and full of voices. The sand sticks to your ankles. Your breath comes fast, but it feels good. Your tattoos stretch with every step, like they're pulling you forward, not back. When you stop, panting and grinning, you realize something. This body of yours, it's not just a canvas. It's a companion, one that remembers, one that grows, one that sometimes carries you even when you forget when you're going. And now marked and raw and open to it all, you finally trust it. All of it. Even the unfinished parts, especially those. The next few days slip by like whispered stories, gentle, unhurried, and strangely holy. Your body is healing again, but the soreness has shifted from pain to presence. Each new mark on your skin no longer stings, it sings. Quietly, sure, but with that soft insistence of something that intends to stay. One morning, the Tafuga invites you on a walk. You don't ask where, you just follow. He doesn't speak much, and neither do you. The path winds uphill through groves you haven't seen before, trees with bark that peel.
Alleys like old scrolls, birds that mimic the sound of tapping combs. The air is cooler here, touched by the sea's breath from the other side of the island. Eventually, you reach a flat rock outcrop overlooking a steep cliff. The view is ridiculous. Ocean for miles, jagged volcanic edges and clouds that look like they were painted with the side of a thumb. The Tafuga sits. You do the same. He pulls something from his woven pouch, a comb, old, bone. The teeth warm, soft. You recognize it as the one you touched on your second day here, the one he'd said was retired. He sets it on the ground between you. This comb, he says slowly, tattooed 12 generations of my family. You swallow. It has marked men and women, warriors, midwives, drunk fishermen, mourning daughters, lost sons. He smiles faintly. And one angry canoe maker who got his payer while swearing non-stop in 3 languages. You laugh, he continues. But its last mark was mine, after my mother died. You glance at the comb. It feels heavy even just lying there, as if it remembers every scream, every story, every tear. I thought I'd use it forever, he says. But one day it tapped back. You blink. Tapped back. I was inking a boy. He was shaking. And suddenly the comb slipped, just slightly, enough to draw blood in the wrong place. He pauses. I heard it. The comb, just one little click, like it was saying, that's enough. You look at the comb again. You half expect it to shudder. I cleaned it, he says, wrapped it, and placed it on my mother's grave. You nod, unsure what to say. I took it back this morning, he adds, because you should see it, not to use it, to know it. He slides it toward you. You hesitate, then pick it up. It's warm, not from the sun, from something else. It hums faintly, the way old instruments do when you hold them too long. You don't speak, neither does he. The sea crashes below, and then he hands you a fresh piece of bark cloth and a stick dipped in ink. Draw what it tells you, he says. No instruction, no guidance, just trust. You stare at the comb, close your eyes, and begin to draw. It's slow, shaky. You're not channeling spirits or tracing visions. You're listening. The first symbol you draw is a wave, but not curling, crashing. The second, a bird, mid-flight, wings uneven, then a broken circle. Then, without thinking, a comb, not perfect, worn. And then, finally, a tiny hook. It feels right. When you finish, he doesn't look at it. He just says, keep that. Then he takes the comb, wraps it again, and places it back in his pouch. As you walk down the hill, you feel different. Not chosen, not special, just included. And that's the greater gift. That night, in your hut, you stare at the cloth, the wave, the bird.
The hook. Symbols, yes, but also reminders that you're not the first to feel lost, not the last to return, and certainly not alone. Your tattoos tingle slightly as you fall asleep, not with pain, with recognition. The island changes the way it always does, so slowly you don't notice until something's different. The nights grow warmer, the breadfruit trees begin to drop their heavy fruit with louder thuds. The sea glows more often at night, as if phosphorescent creatures have gotten bolder, and the villagers start to speak of departures, not yours, theirs. You learn that soon a group will paddle to another island for trade and family visits. It's part of a seasonal loop that has gone on for generations. Some will return in a week, others in a year, a few maybe never. And with every departure comes a mark, final tattoos, farewell lines, or sometimes beginnings inked before a long voyage, because here no one leaves with unmarked skin. You sit with the tufuga in the shade of the old breadfruit tree as he prepares a farewell design for a young woman named Moana. She's nervous but proud, holding her paddle like it's already part of her arm. She's leaving for the island where her grandmother is buried, the tufuga explains. She's never met her, but she says the ocean will introduce them. The design is simple, 2 long waves crossed by a star. 1 wave for departure, 1 for return. The star is what you follow when the wind forgets your name. When it's done, Moana doesn't cry. She just runs her fingers over the fresh lines and says softly, "Now I won't get lost." You help her pack dried fruit and rolled mats. You don't ask if she's scared, you don't have to. That evening you sit by the shore as the departing group lines up their canoes. People hug, jokes are made. But it's not festive, it's sacred. Every vessel has a carved figure lashed to its front. Protection, memory. Some are birds, some are sharks. One, curiously, is a smiling coconut. You don't want to know that story, the apprentice says when he sees your raised eyebrow. You both laugh and then fall quiet as the paddlers begin to push off. As the canoes glide out into the darkening sea, a song begins behind you. Soft, steady. It's not loud enough to follow the boats, but it doesn't need to be. It wraps around your chest like thread, stitching a kind of invisible tether between the ones who go and the ones who stay. The tufuga appears beside you. No tattoo lasts forever, he says. You look at your arm, at your chest, at the healing curve of your most recent mark. What do you mean? You ask. He gestures to the sea. The skin goes back to the land. Eventually, the ink fades, the patterns blur. You wait for the sadness that should follow. But it doesn't come. because he smiles just a little and adds, "But the stories, they don't fade, they move." He pauses, then touches his temple, and they're not always on the skin. You sit with that for a while. The ocean darkens, the canoes vanish, and somewhere inside you your tattoos shift, not physically, but in meaning. They're no longer souvenirs of pain survived. They're records of a place you became someone else. That night, you return to your hut and unroll the bark cloth with your sketches. You add one more, a canoe. But instead of paddlers, it's filled with symbols, your symbols, waves, birds, broken circles, a comb. You draw one small figure at the front, a dot for a head, arms wide, facing forward, not looking back. You stare at it for a long time, and then, without meaning to, you whisper, "I'm ready." Not for a journey, for a decision. You fall asleep before you can second-guess it, and your dreams are full of water. You wake before the sun rises, your hut still wrapped in the deep blue hush of pre-dawn. No dreams this time, just a steady pulse behind your ribs and a wordless certainty pressing gently on your chest like a hand saying, "Now." You sit up, stretch slowly, careful not to tug at healing skin, and gather the bark cloth drawings you've been keeping close, the canoe, the comb, the open-ended circle. They feel heavier today, like they've absorbed the weight of decision. You leave the hut quietly, barefoot. The ground is cool, damp with dew. Around you, the village slumbers, save for a few pigs snoring with shocking conviction. At the tattoo hut, a lamp glows faintly. The tufuga is already awake, seated cross-legged, his tools laid out in perfect familiar rows. He doesn't look surprised to see you. He just lifts his head and says, "Where?" You place your palm on your upper back, just beneath the nape of your neck. "I think that's where it belongs," you say. He nods, says nothing else. You strip off your shirt and lie down on the mat. The cool woven surface presses into your skin. Your breath comes slow, steady. This will hurt. But that's not why your heart is racing. You're not just adding a new design today. You're closing something, or maybe opening it. Hard to tell the difference sometimes. The tapping begins. You know the rhythm by heart now. The hollow clap of the mallet, the soft pull of skin, the sting that sharpens, crests and fades like a tide pulling back. This time, the tufuga marks you with a pattern based on your own drawing. The canoe filled with symbols, each line chosen carefully. The broken circle near the base of the neck, the storm wave above it, a bird in flight, wings crooked, the comb, and finally, at the top, just between the shoulder blades, he taps in the tiny figure, arms wide, facing forward. By the time he finishes, the sky is pink with light. You sit up, slowly, dizzy and raw, but clear. Your breath catches as you roll your shoulders, sharp sting, but bearable. You ask him what it means, even though you already know. He shrugs. Could be a journey. Could be a map. Could be an apology. Could be a reminder. Then he grins. Could be you finally ran out of excuses. You laugh. It hurts. You laugh harder. He wraps your shoulders in a fresh cloth, ties it gently, and walks away without another word. That afternoon, you bathe alone in the shallow part of the reef. The salt water bites, but kindly, like a friend teasing you for being dramatic. You run your hand along your back, feel the swelling, the fresh edges, and you let yourself cry, not from pain, from release. You understand now, tattoos aren't only about who you were or even who you are. They're sometimes messages from the person you're becoming, sent backward in time, asking you to hold on just a little longer. You float on your back, eyes to the sky, your new tattoo cooling under sun and sea. Later, as the sun sets, you gather with the others around the fire. The apprentice brings a bowl of coconut and taro stew. You take it gratefully. Someone asks if you've been marked again. You nod. They ask what it is. You pause, then say, "It's a letter." They blink. To who? To the future, you say. From someone who's still figuring things out. A few smiles, one chuckle.
No questions, because here everyone understands. Not every tattoo I owe is a statement. Some are simply survival notes, messages that say, I was here, I made it through, I'm still learning. You eat slowly, you feel full, not just from the stew, from becoming. You know it's almost time to leave, not because anyone says so, but because everything begins to whisper it. The waves are quieter, the birds perch longer before they take off.
Even your own body feels like it's leaning subtly toward the path that brought you here. You find yourself saying goodbye in strange ways, not outright, but by noticing things more, how the old woman with the salt bundle always braids her hair before rain, how the apprentice taps his fingers on the table even when he's not holding a comb, how the tufuga sharpens his tools with the tenderness of someone slicing fruit for a child. You begin gathering the small pieces of your journey, the carved turtle shell, the bark cloth of your sketches, the smoothed stone you kept from the tide pool the day you watched the stars melt into the sea, even the empty ink gourd from your second tattoo. You don't pack them. You arrange them on the mat in your hut like puzzle pieces spelling a language no one else can read, and you just sit there, cross-legged, like it's an altar. Later that day, you return to the stone platform above the cliffs, the one where the tufuga first handed you the old comb. It looks the same. The moss is thicker now, the sun warmer, the silence deeper. You lay your barkcloth sketch flat across the stone, weigh it down with the turtle shell, and add one more symbol in the corner. A small open eye, not watching, witnessing. Because that's what this has all been, not a transformation. A witnessing. You witnessed yourself unfold. You witnessed pain become beauty, fear become permanence, doubt become ink. When you stand, the wind brushes your shoulder, your freshly marked back, and it feels like a hand saying, you're ready. You return to the village and sit once more with the tufuga. You don't say much, neither does he. He simply hands you one final item, a small, old comb, not made of bone, but of carved wood. You blink. I can't take this, you say. It's not for tattooing, he says. It's for remembering. You hold it in both hands. It's simple, light, smooth from being passed between fingers for years, maybe decades. But carved along the handle is a tiny series of dots. Your wave, your bird, your broken circle, your canoe. You run your thumb over it. Then he says, you can always come back. And for the first time you believe it. That night you walk the village paths one last time. The stars are full, pressing close like an audience on closing night. People nod at you, not as a guest, as someone who now belongs to somewhere, even if you leave. Your tattoos are no longer just symbols on your skin. They are keys, echoes, testimonies. You sleep that night more deeply than you have in weeks, and in your dream you are walking, not away, but forward, your back bare to the wind, your tattoos glowing faintly with moonlight. You hear the tapping again, not from behind you, but inside. The tools are still working, the story's still being written, but now you hold the ink. The morning you leave, no one says goodbye. Not in the way you expected anyway. No speeches, no tearful hugs, no dramatic music swelling as you board a canoe and drift into a glowing sunrise. Instead, people go about their routines, pounding breadfruit, weaving mats, herding stubborn chickens. But every now and then someone glances up, catches your eye, and gives you the smallest nod, a kind of silent, shared understanding. You've become part of the current now. You came. You were marked. You listened. You stayed long enough to belong, and just long enough to know when it's time to carry the story elsewhere. The tufuga is the last person you see before the path bends toward the shore. He's sharpening a comb, as always. You pause. He looks up, nods. That one on your back, he says, the little figure in the canoe. Yeah. He sets the comb down, leans back slightly. It's not paddling. You frown. I know. It doesn't have to, he says. Sometimes all you need is to point your body in the right direction. You breathe in, then out, and walk on. At the shore, a small canoe waits, single seat, modest, the kind a child might play in, but it's real, oiled, balanced, ready. You step inside. The wood is warm from the sun. Your bare feet fit perfectly. There's a paddle, carved with the same hooked design you traced on your second night in the village. You push off. The sea accepts you instantly. No drama, just motion. The canoe cuts through the water like it remembers the way home. Or maybe you remember. Behind you, the island grows smaller. The tattoo hut becomes a dot, then a blur, but you don't look back. Instead, you paddle once, twice, then rest. You let the tide pull you forward. Your body feels light, not just from the leaving, from the carrying. Your tattoos, once sharp and sore, now feel like gentle fingerprints pressed into your skin. Each one a reminder of breath, of choosing pain over numbness, of staying still long enough to listen. Hours pass, the sun arcs overhead. You eat dried fruit from a leaf packet, drink from a coconut. You drift, paddle, drift again. And somewhere between the horizon and memory, you feel it. The world turning, not like a clock, like a story. You think of all the people you met, the girl who touched her father's tattoo, the elder with the unfinished dot, the apprentice who joked through everything but never missed a line. You touch your chest, right where your own circle still isn't fully closed, and you smile, because maybe it never will be, because maybe that's the point. Your paddle hits a current that feels like an invitation. You take it. The wind rises behind you. Your tattoos tingle with the shift. And somewhere, just behind your ears, the tapping begins again. Not from a comb, from memory, from intention, from you. The canoe doesn't race, it glides, and your body, with all its lines and layers, goes with it. Unfinished, alive, home. The stars arrive before land does. You drift into night, wrapped in their silver quiet, the sky yawning wide above you, stitched with constellations, so old they probably watched the first Tufuga lift his comb. The sea is calmer now, gentler, as if it knows this is the end of something, or perhaps the soft beginning of what comes next. You've been paddling less and listening more. And in the hush of the water against your canoe, you hear it, the shape of a story finishing its breath. It doesn't end with a revelation or a transformation. It ends with permission to carry this, to live with it, to let the ink do what ink does best, stay when everything else leaves. You lean back in the canoe, your spine resting against the curve of the hull, your fingers tracing the new lines on your back. They're warm, even in the sea breeze, like small suns pressed just beneath the surface. Each one hums quietly. The canoe bobs, drifting forward with the tide. Your paddle rests across your knees. You're not steering now, not because you're lost, but because you no longer fear drifting, because you trust your own water, because you've become part of something old, something slow, something holy. You look down and catch your reflection in the black water, flickering, fractured, threaded with starlight. Your face is the same, your skin different. But it's your eyes that have changed. They hold a knowing, not the kind of knowing that lectures or preaches, the kind that waits, that listens, that recognizes pain when it arrives in someone else and knows how to say, "You'll survive this too." On the horizon, a shape forms, not land, not yet, but the idea of land, the curve of something solid waiting to be known. You reach for the paddle, not because you have to, because you're ready. And as your canoe glides forward, your tattoos settle into silence. They've told their story. Now it's your turn to live it. Now, take a breath. Let your chest rise and fall, like the tide that carried you through this journey. You've traveled far tonight, not in miles but in memory, through stories written in skin, inked in pain, and healed with time. Let your muscles relax. Feel the weight of your body against your bed, like your canoe against the water, supported, cradled. The tapping has faded now, the fire is out, the comb is resting. And so are you. If your thoughts wander, let them, like leaves on the wind. You don't need to catch them. Just notice them drifting and let them go. Tonight, your story continues. Maybe not in ink, maybe not in waves, but in breath, in rest, in the calm that comes after becoming. You don't need to solve anything right now. You don't need to know what tomorrow looks like. You just need to float. Your body knows how. Your story remembers how. You're safe. You're marked. You're whole, even in your unfinishedness. So let the last ripple fade. Let the stars tuck you in. And let yourself drift. Good night.